I'd like to welcome everybody to the October 16th, 2023 regular council meeting. I'd like to call the meeting to order. We do have Councillor Allard in the audience with us virtually tonight. Thank you for joining us, Councillor Allard. We acknowledge that this land is the traditional territory of the Three Fires Confederacy of the First Nations, comprised of the Ojibwe, the Ottawa, and the Potawatomi peoples, and of the Huron-Wendat peoples. We value the significant historical and contemporary contributions of local and regional First Nations and of all the original peoples of Turtle Island who have been living and working on the land from time immemorial. Please stand for our national anthem if you are able to.
Ton bras s'est porté l'épée, il s'est porté la croix. Ton histoire est une épopée des plus brillants exploits. God keep our land glorious and free. Oh, Canada, we stand on guard for thee. Oh, Canada, we stand on guard for thee.
Joining us here tonight, if members of council and anybody in the audience could just ensure their cell phones are on silent, that would be great. I will go to our clerk for a closed meeting report.
Thank you, Mary Bondi. I'm just going to pull it up.
Okay, while he's pulling that up, I will ask any members of council if they have any conflicts of interest. Seeing none, thank you.
So on October 16th at 4:30 p.m., council moved into closed section as permitted to do so by the Municipal Act by way of section 239(2)C to discuss a proposed or pending acquisition or disposition of land by the municipality or a local board. At 5 p.m. on October 16, 2023, council moved into closed section as permitted to do so by the Municipal Act as amended by way of section 239(2)D to discuss labor relations and the employee negotiations. And that's the extent of my report.
Mover and a seconder for adopting of the published agenda. We do have some amendments. We have two delegations for 10.3, and we also have a notice of motion entered this evening by Councillor McGuire-Blaise. So I need a mover and a seconder for the amended agenda, please. Deputy Mayor Shepley, supported by Councillor Guerin. Any questions? Seeing none, all in favor, and that is carried. 7.1, I need a mover and a seconder to adopt the regular council meeting minutes that are amended as circulated today. They had a few little corrections. Deputy Mayor Shepley, supported by Councillor Mady. Any questions on that? Seeing none, all in favor, and that is carried. I need a mover and a seconder for the special council meeting minutes for September 11th, the 2023 storm update. Needing a mover and a seconder here. Councillor McGuire-Blaise, Deputy Mayor Shepley. Any questions to that? Seeing none, all in favor, and that is carried. I need a mover and seconder for the special council meeting minutes for September 25th. Councillor Mady, Deputy Mayor Shepley. Any questions? And that is carried. I need a mover and seconder for the special council meeting minutes for September 25th for the site-specific zoning amendment for lands located at 22 Gordon Avenue. A mover and a seconder, Councilor McGuire Blaze, Deputy Mayor Shepley, all in favor. And that is carried. And last one, special council meeting minutes for October 2nd, supported by Councilor Hammond, seconded by Councilor Mady. Any questions? Seeing none, all in favor. And that is carried. We have public presentations. It's local government week, and we'll go to our CEO, Doug Sweet.
This is local government week, and we thought a great way to kick that off was promote local government, and that's with our two youth reps. So we did some public presentations with them on what they think it's like to be involved with municipal government. So we have a couple of videos we'd like to play for council and the public tonight.
Hi, I'm Colin. I'm a youth council rep with the town of Essex. I'm 17 years old and I go to Essex District High School. During COVID, I was a little bored, so I started watching the town council meetings. And from that, I developed an interest. There were some interesting topics that I was interested in, and my family's also been involved. My great-grandfather was a reeve for the town of Essex, and my grandpa and my grandma were both town councilors before me. So I was very interested. So far, I've been able to learn a lot of the procedures that go on. It is a quite formal process, so like Robert's Rules of Order and the motions that require first, second, third, fourth, and final reading. And also just getting to see the public consultation after a meeting, how long it takes to get a motion from, a notice all the way up until possibly becoming policy is a long and grueling process, but it definitely pays off in the end. First, after high school, I want to get my business degree, and then from that, go on and get a law degree, and then hopefully practice as a lawyer, and maybe get into politics later on. You can email me at cpine@essex.ca or Lauren as well. You're welcome to always email the mayor or your ward reps, and also subscribe to our mailing list on essex.ca to be able to find out what's going on in the town.
Hi, my name is Lauren. I am a youth council rep for the town of Essex. I am 15 years old and I go to Essex District High School. I've always had an interest in law and politics, and then my mother sent me the link to fill out the application form, and I did, and I'm very happy with it. I learned about the process that goes into council and all the money and time and effort, especially behind the scenes that goes into the meetings and things that go on behind the scenes that I wasn't aware about before. My whole life I've had an interest in both medicine and law, and then I took this opportunity to explore my interest and see if it's a path that I want to go down. So I'll either end up in medicine or in law. You can either email me or my other youth rep, Colin, or talk to the mayor, or use our online programs, or even attend our public facilities and talk to one of our representatives there.
You youth member Pine and youth member Smith, that was great. Did you want to say anything else on that? No?
For the public, I think it's important that we do have the youth perspective, and with Colin and Lauren, they've been great advocates in bringing the youth voice to this council. So we appreciate everything you guys have done, and these videos are just a sign of the work you're doing here. Thank you.
you. We will move to 8.2, Spencer Wilson, Harrow Pickleball Club. So Spencer, just make your way back to the little podium that back there where the delegation is and turn your mic on, please. And you will get 5 minutes. I believe we've 5 minutes to address council. Nobody? You have to go to the back. Okay, go on back there. Okay. The Harrow Pickleball Club gets 10 minutes then. You just doubled your minutes.
Thank you for having me today. My name is Spencer Wilson. With me is Mark Clifford, and we are both members of the town of Essex. We are here today to discuss allotting funding for the implementation of pickleball courts in the town of Essex, or specifically in Harrow. Mark and I are members of the Harrow Colchester South Pickleball Club. As a group, we play multiple times a week in Harrow at the tennis courts, which have a large group of people that come to play. Members of our group also play at real pickleball courts in Kingsville, which allow for a much better experience. Across North America, pickleball has been booming as a sport, and the number of players in our area is very exciting. The game is played on a court similar to a tennis court, but is 1/3 of the size, meaning you can have 3 pickleball courts on one size of a tennis court. In addition to playing regularly, many members of our group have participated in tournaments that have international participation. This is certainly something that we could have in the town of Essex. Over the last 2 years, municipalities in our community have embraced this new change head on and provided a lot of opportunity. For example, Windsor has 49 courts at least that I know of, and Tecumseh has 14 that I know of. But in Harrow, we have very little. In Harrow and Essex, there is a lack of place to play. Currently, residents can only play on tennis courts. And in Harrow, these courts are in very rough shape. Indoor play is scheduled and procured by players with lack of opportunity from the town. Our group plays in the Harrow Public School in Harrow, and there's no other spot that we can play, and nothing provided by the town. There are 3 indoor courts at the Medill Center in Essex here. However, this is basically a safety hazard because the size of the court is too big for the area. If you drive by Essex, Harrow, or McGregor tennis courts, the majority of the time the players are playing pickleball and not tennis. Tennis is surely important too. However, three times the pickleball courts on the same space can provide much more opportunity, and we can have both. Recreation for all is the slogan of the town of Essex, so adding pickleball courts will match the vision of the town. This sport is one that can be played by all residents and can attract new people. It is something that can be done by almost all ages. As the budget is being created, we are asking that an allotment of funds for the creation of standalone pickleball courts is included and strongly considered. Our group would like town representatives to review costing and a potential plan for this. We want to help and we want to support in the plan. It's hard to state the number of players that play pickleball in our town because there's just so many. In our Harrow group, I know of 40 people that play, and there is more than that. On our Facebook group, there is over 100. In Essex, I know of at least 30 residents that play myself, and I played here once or twice. For the indoor times at the Medill Center, I know there have been times where people have gone and been turned away because of the number of players that are there. I know there is a large number of people that play in McGregor multiple times a week, but I've never been myself, so I can't speak for the number. I know of Amherstburg residents coming to Harrow to use our facilities, and this is all happening on poor tennis courts. New houses are bringing in new members to our community, and the opportunity is there. For my final statements, there has been a lot of negative in the town in the last 2 years, which is out of our control. 2 big storms have resulted in a lot of damage and a lot of flooding for many. This is on top of our 2 main streets of our 2 towns being closed for the better part of a year. Residents need this, businesses need this, youth and people of all ages in our community need this. And all we ask is, what are the next steps that we can plan together? I'm going to pass it off to Mark for some statements.
Hi, good evening, Madam Mayor and Council. Thank you for allowing me to speak on this tonight. It's great to see you, and we invite you to come out some night and play pickleball with us. Be great. As Spencer has shown you, pickleball is the fastest growing sport in the world now. We have an opportunity here in Harrow to jump on it as our population grows exponentially. The present courts in Harrow are old and consistently breaking down. The Essex County Tennis Association used to have tennis tournaments in Harrow, but they stopped doing that a couple of years ago because there are better courts available in other areas in the town, in the county, and they've just stopped coming to Harrow. There were 5 of us that went from the Harrow Club to Forest Glade for a tournament this weekend on Sunday. The complex there is amazing. We have a lot of room and added 10 pickleball courts and 6 tennis courts this past year. The 10 pickleball courts were all full. They put together a tournament in probably 2 or 3 weeks for Canadian Mental Health Association in Windsor. They got 40 to 50 people to play, charged each person $40 and made $1,600 for Canadian Mental Health. That is something that we'd like to do in Harrow, but the opportunity isn't there for us. Okay. The club in Harrow is ready and willing and planning a charity tournament as well, but unfortunately we can't do it in Harrow. So we're looking elsewhere for courts that we can run it on. We would love to continue to do these types of things in town, but are unable at this time. Our proposal that we're looking for would not add a lot to the cost of what you're thinking of as far as surfacing and fixing the drainage underneath. We've also run in the past, this past year, pickleball clinics free of charge to any members of the town who want to come out and learn the game. They've been very well received, and we can look forward to doing that in the future as well. That's it. Thank you.
And Mark, any questions from members of council to our delegates? Councillor Mady.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. What's preferred, indoor courts or outdoor courts?
That's a tough question. It might change between people. For myself, I'd say outdoor courts. I think people like to be outside in the summer. You can use them more frequently, probably 9 times throughout the year. And it doesn't have to be scheduled. If it's light outside or there's lights at the courts, people can just go and show up and start playing. There doesn't have to be a schedule time at a gym. However, there is the lack of indoor courts as well, which can be something done 24/7 throughout the year. So that is something that we think can already be done. And then the outdoor courts is something that would have to be done in addition.
Thank you through the chair. So where you're proposing that the current tennis courts that are next to the arena be converted into pickleball courts and be redone? Is that what the proposal is?
That's what I would like, or that's what I think our group would like. However, we know tennis is important too, and they should feel included. There are many ideas out there. There's one idea of turning 1 tennis court into 3 pickleball courts. There is the idea of completely having 3 or more separate pickleball courts elsewhere, stand alone at their own facility. Or there is, yes, the option of completely transitioning it to a pickleball court, since we have tennis courts already in Essex and in McGregor.
Through the chair, sorry. And when I was reading your submission to come to council tonight, did I read correctly that your pickleball organization wants to fundraise to help pay for new pickleball courts?
Yes, we would. Anything that we can do to help, we would like to do. We know there is a cost with that, but if we can run tournaments, if we can reach out to businesses in the community for naming rights or sponsorship opportunities, that is something we would we would support with, yes.
Just one more. So our 2024 budget is coming up, which I'm sure is why you're here. I know that I put in more recreational things like pickleball courts, basketball courts in our parks. So I do know that that is something that I'm looking to do for the entire municipality. And I hope that this is on council. It's an option for council to negotiate when we come to budget. So thanks for coming to us with your, do you happen to have any idea of how much the cost is?
Roughly, I think the more you build, the variable cost goes down, but I think it's roughly about 40 to 60,000 per court. So if we were to look at doing 6 courts, it would be roughly about 350,000.
Yeah, it's about right.
Okay, I want to make sure that all of your group knows, and I'm sure you do know, that October 25th from 6 to 8, we're having an open house at the Harrow Arena on our community services master plan. If you go to our website and click on the community services master plan, you can see it. I'm looking at it right now, and I think it has pickleball courts mentioned in there, but it has them like far down the line. So like anything, before when we had a dog park, people will say, how come Essex Center has a dog park? Well, a committee fundraised, came to council with some seed money and said, we have money, will you match us? That is like, if you want to get it done faster, that is absolutely key. Like finding naming rights. You know, if you're looking at getting 5 courts, maybe there's 5 businesses in Harrow that will each throw in 25 grand for the courts. And then, you know, we can come up with the other bit. So a lot of moving parts also in the Harrow area around the high school, around our existing courts. Our existing courts need a new base. They have, I think, since I've been on council. So we need to completely rip them up. We know that it's just getting the money. And yes, the streetscapes cost money. And now the flooding, you know, having private matching donations is going to be key, because residents right now from the coffee open houses, there was a lot of comments on flooding infrastructure. So we only have so much money. And one of the challenges of our municipality is we have 4 urban centers. So people want amenities in each center. We have 3 splash pads, right? Which is a lot of splash pads for a small assessment municipality. So I love it. Maybe the direction could be to receive the presentation and ask administration to come back with a price. So then, you know, we could start doing that little community thermometer, you know, when they do that fundraising thermometer, and we could work together. I'm not sure what the balance of council is. And I do know we're going into budget, but I don't want to promise you that 2024, we're going to have money for pickleball courts. It just takes a while. Essex Center, they just got their tennis courts here, and it took a while. Like it was 50,000 one year, 50,000 another year. Like it was planned and staged to make sure that we could afford it over the long run. So looking for direction from council, we could receive the presentation and have our director bring back prices on 3 courts, 4 courts, 5 courts, and then we could talk to the group after that. Okay, that is a motion from our deputy mayor, supported by Councillor Hammond. Any further comments to the motion? Thank you for taking the leadership, and we'll see you next week. Councillor Hammond, or sorry, Councillor Mady.
Madam Mayor, if just for director, when they're looking at prices, maybe look at if there's some underutilized area, maybe we can build a full court in that area and not have to worry about the reconstruction at the arena, maybe.
Deputy, oh, sorry. Okay. Deputy Mayor, did you have something? No? Okay. So the motion is that we're receiving the delegations and asking administration to come back with locations and pricing. Okay, all in favor? And that is carried. You can stay if you want, or you can leave. It's up to you. We won't take it against you if you decide to leave.
You can think about it first, Mark.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. 10.1 Recreation and Culture Alcohol Risk Management Policy Updates. And we'll go to, you're already here. Awesome. We'll go to our manager, Cynthia Cakebread here, and then we'll receive it.
Basically, we haven't rewritten document. We've just made amendments to it based on new documentation that was directed to us from our provincial organizations, which is the Ontario Recreation Facilities Association and Parks and Rec Ontario, who said that updates were provided in a number of documents from the AGCO and the Ontario Health Association Act as well, or documents as well. So we basically went through and just tried to capture the changes through those documents, and then added them in, and we took it and vetted it with an AGCO inspector to make sure that we were complete and correct in the document included.
Any questions from members of council? Councillor Guerin. No, sorry, Councillor McGuire, please.
Thank you through the chair. On the list that you have there of licensed or potentially licensed amenities within the municipality, I noticed in Colchester you have a park, but there was no park in Essex. Is it possible to license a park like the, let's say, Heritage Park?
I thought we had added heritage onto that document, and that may need an update. Yeah, I believe Heritage Park is on it. So we did specify based on locate. We didn't want to do all. I think discussion came up before when we originally did the document in 2014 about being specific to locations that we knew were going to be event centers. And then we did update this year to include, I thought, Heritage Park and Colchester as well.
It's there. I'm reading it over again, and it's down under Harrow. And when I hit Harrow, I stopped reading because I'm like, there's no park in Essex. My apologies.
Members of council, Councillor Guerin.
Thank you to the mayor. Yeah, so our existing alcohol risk management policy is a little bit dated, and I'm happy to see a new one come, and some of the things that were talked about, that clarifying some of the things that were in the previous one and adding a few other things. There's 3 items that I'd like to have council and admin consider amendments to it. I know the idea here is trying to mitigate as much risk on a municipality as possible. But there are some other things that I think we can add to the policy that I think other municipalities are doing, not all, but some. And it would really help with especially larger events, concerts, and that sort of. First one is the size of the container that can be served at large events or events of significance. Permitting the sale of 473 ml container size for any and all events of 200 people or greater, I'd be in support of, especially things like sporting events, concerts, festivals. But I'd like to limit the number of drink tickets sold at one time to 4. So currently you can buy 5 drink tickets and purchase a 355 ml regular standard size can of beer, for example. I'd like to go to 473s as an option for large events, but limit the amount of tickets you can buy at any one time is 4 to 4. The main reasons when you go to sporting events and concerts and festivals that you see that you can only purchase tall cans is it alleviates stress at the point of purchase, which is the bar. It takes longer to consume 473 ml than it does 355 ml. So your lines and your pressure on your bar staff diminishes, thus less mistakes made on the side of the bartender. According to Google, it takes on average 30 to 40 minutes to consume a tall can drink of 473 ml. It takes only an average of 20 to 30 minutes to consume a regular size can of beer, 355 ml. In my opinion, there is a misconception out there about a larger container encouraging excessive drinking. I believe that claim is unsupported in the industry. AGCO does allow it in other municipalities. You have to understand when you're talking about a larger 473 versus 355, even though it's larger, it contains the same amount of alcohol per volume. Other important reasons why larger containers, I think, should be permitted: get a greater selection of brands offered for sale, particularly in the ever-growing craft beer market and cider market. So most of the craft beer companies will do 473 ml. So what you'd have to do at a larger festival is you'd still buy it, but pour it into a cup to make it a 12-ounce drink. But that again slows down the bar and alleviates, puts a lot of pressure on the bar. And then according to brewersjournal.ca, the LCBO claims that tall cans now make up 80% of their inventory, and that's growing. Another reason to permit the sale of tall cans, it's better value for dollar spent, both on the seller and for the purchaser. Policy should also read, like I said, when serving these tall containers at any event, that ticket should be unique so that the bartending staff understands that a ticket is for 473 and not so much for 355. The second one is a ticket purchase 5 to 4 for 473s. The total amount of milliliters in 5 purchases of tickets of 355 mil is 1,775 milliliters. If you limit that to 473s, it's a total of 1,892 milliliters. So it's an extra 117 mil or 6.6% difference, which is in the grand scheme of things minuscule. The volume again remains the exact same. And then lastly would be, I'd like to increase the volume, the alcohol per serving from 5% to 6%. In a lot of cases, the 12-ounce beers come in 5% or less. And I love the part in the policy where you're encouraging offering lighter beers than even the 5%, which is great. It should always be an option as well. But a lot of the alcohol that is available to purchase will come more in 5.5% or even up to 6%. And we're permitting a glass of wine, which is a 5-ounce pour, and it's 3.2 times more alcohol in it per volume than a beer has. And again, with liquor as well. I know some of the events I've been involved with in the last 5-6 years, COVID aside, we really got off of the liquor and the mix, and we're going more with the coolers and stuff. It's easier to control at the bar, and I think I think when you have the liquor, it does. I think that, if anything, promotes more drinking than if you're just offering the beers and stuff. So, some of the municipalities around here that are offering the 473 mils and AGCO is allowing it is, for example, Windsor WFCU. So if you go in there right now and you want to get a Smirnoff Ice at 5.5%, 473, you can. If you want to get a 473 mil Molson Canadian, you can. Bud Gardens in London. I know when I had my country festival in Windsor at Lansbury Park, we were permitted to do large 473s as well. So I'd like to at least have administration council have the conversation on it. I don't think we have to approve this tonight. We have a policy in place, but maybe we can circle back on it. I'd like to dig in a little more with AGCO and myself, even ask them a few questions with respect to the 473 versus the 355 mil. That's it.
Councillor Hammond, and we do always have the ability to table it to another meeting. Councillor Hammond? Oh, sorry. Did I miss you? I'm sorry. Oh, okay. I apologize. Any other further comments from members of council, either Councillor McGuire, please.
Thank you through the chair. I think Councillor Guerin makes a lot of really good points. And I see where maybe we can tweak the policy a little bit more. So I'm wondering if I can put a motion forward to table this for now and have administration come back to us with maybe some other options for larger cans, higher alcohol percentage per serving, and take a look at what that might look like.
Fire Blaze needing a seconder. Oh, sorry, Manager Kate Fred.
Where we came rather than jumping to the table. Part of the operation, the municipal alcohol policy, is very much along the lines of who's going to be using alcohol in our facilities. And we have to remember that primarily the ones who are using it are private parties or functions that are coming in, and we are providing this as a guidance for them. And in using that as a guidance, we look to other organizations to provide us with guidance and best practices. So in looking at Canada's recommendations on low risk guidelines, on Ontario.ca's alcohol use and safe drinking guidelines, Ontario Public Health Association, the Liquor Control Act, AGCO, Center for Addiction and Mental Health, and Center for Substance Abuse, all come back to prevention strategies and all echo the promotion of those specific measurements and low alcohol, not going high alcohol, using those exact measurements, those exact sizes and serving sizes, so that we can be promoting moderate and safe consumption of alcohol within our facilities. Great ideas on different approaches of what may or may not work, but again, we need to go to something that tells us, when we aren't the experts, what should you be using? And when I have 6 different documents just that I know I referenced in with the report, that all consistently use the exact same size and measurement of alcohol for a municipal alcohol policy. And looking at the city of Windsor, when you say WFC, that is a year-round bar operation. The municipal alcohol policy is not directly used in the use for that type of alcohol service. We are using this again for intermittent alcohol. We aren't doing it for year-run bar operations that we are providing as a municipality. We're using this document to ensure that we have safe consumption by our users in our facilities. And again, going back to who do we ask and what's the recommendation, we have multiple documents that have provided us with those measurements with a purpose.
Good arguments on both sides. We do have Councillor McGuire Blaze that brought forward a motion to table to get more feedback. And part of that feedback, perhaps Cynthia, you could send us some of these, like I see some of the references in there, and we can also, like, I'd like to read more on both sides. The agenda comes out Thursday. I'm going to admit it's a big agenda, right? So Councillor Guerin obviously did a lot of homework, but we could do more us up here. So needing a seconder for Councillor McGuire Blaze's motion to table it to the next meeting.
Hold it off to the meeting. It's going to be a motion to postpone to the next meeting, not a motion to table.
We have a mover for a motion to table. I do need a seconder or postpone. Somebody give me a coffee. Councillor Hammond. Okay, all in favor of that motion to postpone to the next meeting. Okay, and Brad voted as well. That is carried unanimously. 10.2 Recreation and Culture 2023-04 update on recreation and culture programs. And we will go to Cynthia, our manager, again.
Report. I think you can see some substantial growth in the last, 12 years since we made our first big change in staffing. We continue to grow. Right now, our biggest issue is always resource and manpower and the ability to continue the broader growth and quality implementation of our program.
Manpower too. I'm very proud of all the programs we do here at the town of Essex. They're awesome. Looking for a mover and a seconder to receive this report, and thank you, Kate, as well. Councillor Verbeek, supported by Councillor Mady. Any questions to the report? Seeing none, all in, sorry, Director Morissette. Just shout tonight, just shout.
Thank you, Mayor Bundy. Just one other additional thing I want to point out about the recreational programming, aside from all the hard work that they do. So great job, team. They are doing a recreational program survey right now. So if you are looking for specific programs, make sure you complete the survey. This is absolutely imperative for us to know where we're going to allocate our resources and what type of programming we're going to have. So if you're looking for something specific, or you just want to tell us that we're doing a great job, or want to tell us where we can improve, this is your way to do that. Thank you.
Awesome. Did we vote on that? All in favor? And that is carried unanimously. We will move to 10.3 Infrastructure Services, Protection of Highways bylaw, and we will go to our delegates first. So I'm not sure who wants to be the first one here. Or was it? Roland? Okay. Between Roland, Alice, and Joan, you have 10 minutes. So take the podium at the back there, please. Councillor Mady.
Through you, Madam Mayor. I see that Megan is in the audience and she'd requested to speak. I was wondering if we would allow her to help support in the delegation of her time there.
So moved by Councillor Mady, supported by Councillor Verbeek. All in favor, or any questions to that motion? Seeing none, all in favor? Okay, collectively, you still have 10 minutes. So move. I think that was 2/3. Let's just vote again. All in favor? Yeah, that's everybody. Okay, so just move back to the podium there, everybody, and turn on the mic when you speak. Welcome.
how to do it now. I guess I'm going first because I basically just want to do a little rebuttal. I don't want to repeat what I said last time about some of the things from the last meeting. I am Megan Irwin from Belcroft Beach, Carroll, and I wanted to address the council once again just to rebut some points made by administration and some counselors after my delegation last meeting. Thank you, everybody, for letting me do that. What should determine what landscaping should be allowed on? I agree with council. The first consideration should be public safety. But true public safety does not need a total control of the entire road allowance. In the beaches, the road allowance is huge as the streets are narrow and likely to remain so. But gardens on the road allowances are everywhere, not just in the beaches, but all throughout Essex. The fact is, Windsor and other municipalities have generous best practice policies to address this. A few examples from Windsor. The 20 centimeter height rule applies only to the first foot from the edge of the highway. Plants up to 3 feet and smaller are allowed on the other road allowance, as are rocks, mulch, decorative stones that do not cause risk of injury. For trees, taller plants, or personal property, boulders, basketball hoops, for example, on the road allowance, there is a permit process in place. No mention is made that permits will be denied if any time in the definite future, someone thinks maybe there might be infrastructure upgrades, as Director Gerard has said. Residents are responsible for removing or replacing landscaping in the case of actual infrastructure projects at their expense. Mississauga and Guelph have even more progressive best practices than Windsor. They encourage native plants and pollinator gardens on the town road allowance. We have sent counselors last week the Blooming Boulevard article from Mississauga detailing this. Guelph actually has a program that financially reimburses residents for planting these gardens. And no, there's no 8 inches or 20 centimeter height limit on these gardens, but no, they do not obstruct the line of sight. Is Essex too small a municipality to allow this? I certainly hope not. As Essex County has many rare species that don't exist anywhere else in Canada, biodiversity and native planting are needed to preserve these. Enforcement. I don't understand how a more progressive policy will result in more complaints, as Director Gerard fears. There should be less complaints, not more, as more options are allowed. Councillor Hammond is worried about trees falling and the public safety problems they have caused. I am too. But from what I'm aware of, this has become a mission of the town to maintain these trees and look for and remove unsafe ones. Bylaws exist for this. Finally, I would like to encourage some kind of grandfathering for all the safe landscaping that already exists. Only this could prevent complaints from neighborhood disputes. On the contrary, the proposed bylaw could make frivolous complaints easier and more arbitrary enforcement possible. Again, I call on you not to pass this bylaw as is. I really think that other residents besides myself are tired of cutting grass and want to do their own little bit to leave a greener, healthier world for the children.
I am in favor, sorry, Your Worship, considers, I am Roland Chodal, same address. And I am in favor of voting down this bylaw in order to see a new one written on a clean slate. The town has lived decades without a highways by law. During these decades, how many safety cases occur? At which cost for the town? We have just heard here about one car hitting a basketball net, maybe paid by the town insurance, but what else? Just a cloudy possible danger for safety. Sorry, to me, that's not enough to justify the threat directed to thousands of homeowners put into the worrying situation of lawbreakers. The town has not the resources to enforce proactively the thousands of minor existing offenses which would destroy thousands of front yards in many neighborhoods. And attack some couple of the councillors, as they said last time. Madam Mayor suggested last meeting a more realistic plan which could allow to protect and manage the highways by investigating safety issues on the road allowance and by giving time to the residents to clear any obstruction when it is identified as such. This plan would be in line with the town resources. It would be part of a totally clearly rewritten bylaw, accepting to grandfathering the existing situation. Oh, impossible, would say the supporters of this proposed bylaw, because the landscaping, the rock pool have never been authorized. Of course, no authorization process was previously in place. How twisted is that? A new bylaw, entirely rewritten from A to Z, would be in line with the future climate change adaptation plan and the future 23/7 strategic plan the town is preparing. These plans' concerns of creating, protecting naturalized area are the opposite of the policy plan to be enforced by the proposed bylaw, an opposition well pointed out by expert Lauren Johnson in their letter. You already consistently suggested to get inspiration into the best practice recent document from Windsor. The director Gerard and the service involved not only ignored that, but they were mocking the recommendation when he said last meeting that they just verbatim what? Not the recommended best practices he promised to consider, but an old obsolete Windsor bylaw dated from 2010. This was not extended research, sorry, which could have gone as far as Guelph, Mississauga, and the municipalities trying to really include more progressive regulation as you pledge to do to your electors. And finally, what is a bylaw which doesn't stipulate any form of appeal? A new appeal committee was promised by administration in the January meeting, if I recall, but it didn't find its way in the projected bylaw. In conclusion, if City Council want to assert that about managing safely the roads allowance, the town and the homeowners are not enemies, but both concerned by these particular pieces of land, which are publicly owned, but privately taken care of. There is a dual responsibility between the town, granted large road allowances for road and infrastructure, okay, and the owners of the abutting properties who are required to be responsible at their own cost and time of this public land section. If this text is adopted tonight, with the hope that a later of some recommend.
Buddy, you have 1 minute left. Just let it.
Thank you. With the hope that a later addition of some recommended more progressive practice will reinstate a fair balance between the absolute power expressed in the bylaw and the residents' right. Sincerely, I think that will not happen. Once a bylaw is a law, it takes another bylaw to amend it. While this new bylaw would be in effect after a vote here, challenges to the arbitrary decisions it would allow will only be made via court cases that would likely be lost. And this would cost taxpayers an awful lot of wasted money, more than repairing one car hitting a baseball net. For all this reason, I respectfully ask the City Council to vote down the proposed text for a 2019 bylaw in order to have a clean slate to start over in another and right direction.
I believe we have another delegate, Nettie. Okay, Nettie, make your way back there.
Boy, if I realized one more person, I could have had 10 minutes. Yowza. That's the single biggest issue, is trying to get through 8 pages in 5 minutes, so you cull it down, right? Okay. Good evening, Madam Mayor and Deputy Mayor and Council. Am I on? I'm on. Yes, okay. I'm Nettie Ridley. I'm from Colchester, and this is also concerning bylaw 2219. I am respectfully requesting the town of Essex to take a more enlightened approach regarding residents planting, ideally native, on the ROW in front of their properties. I understand the necessity for continuity. I understand that residents cannot just make their own decisions about what they want on the ROWs. However, what I don't understand is the expectation that residents will maintain grass on these ROWs. Turf grass is a negative to our environment, yet we're in non-compliance if we plant with the express purpose of helping our environment, insects, and wildlife. Native plantings assist insects, of which a number are not bees, but still pollinators, which we desperately need. We're losing our insects at such a rate that some experts refer to it as insect apocalypse. This is science. Hundreds of thousands of species have been lost and continue to do so at a rate of 2 to 3% per year. We've been brainwashed, me included, that a conventional turfgrass lawn is a natural green space harmonious with nature. It is not. A turfgrass lawn is, in fact, a non-productive eco-desert. Requires intensive maintenance, providing little ecological value. Replacing lawns with native, biodiverse, nourishing green spaces is long overdue. A lawn can still be green, but a grass alternative. There are other low-growing ground covers and plants which can substitute. Plants also help mitigate climate change as they absorb greenhouse gases. Grass absorbs some carbon, but that's usually offset by the emissions when we mow if we are using gas. Certainly, a gas-powered lawnmower which runs for 1 hour releases the same amount of air pollution as you drive in your car for 3 hours. As to gas-powered leaf blowers, major ouch, especially if it's an older model, which adds a shocking amount of pollution, far more than a lawnmower, kind of like running an F-150 for 2 or 3 hours. Use of pesticides and fertilizers is rampant. Pesticides are toxic chemicals whose main purpose is to kill, and it does so with impunity. Fertilizers affect soil health, with the runoff affecting our waterways. It all works into our food chain and drinking water. In our quest to maintain that perfect lawn, we contaminate our soil, our water, vegetation, beneficial insects, birds, and fish. Also, most people don't realize vapors are emitted from using pesticides. A sobering thought. David Suzuki Foundation research indicates that each year, thousands of children are poisoned by pesticides. Health Canada reports 2021 sales of pesticides in Canada was 132,885,434 kilograms sold. A U.S. Geological Survey reports over 1 billion pounds of pesticides are sold in the U.S. each year. Water. EPA states that over 30% of residential water use, 30% goes to our lawns. Stats indicate more water and fertilizer is used on lawn grass than corn and wheat combined in North America. Few homeowners realize, we just don't know, that we're contributing so much to the carbon footprint, which is driving climate change. A huge concern is that of municipalities for their upkeep of roadside, and public spaces and parks. Ontario has over 400,000 acres of turf grass. Grass is the largest irrigated crop in North America. Common sense and a progressive approach should be applied to those who are attempting to be better land stewards, who are trying to help mitigate insect and wildlife decline and climate change. A holistic approach is necessary in an attempt to be one with nature, rather than continuing to fight it, control it, and kill it. In the Town of Essex 2022 Climate Adaptation Plan Community Engagement, objective number 2 was entitled Encourage the Preservation of the Natural Environment and Support the Adoption of Nature-Based Solutions.
Time has gone up, so if you could wrap it up.
Okay, we're going to. Let's applaud and support those who are trying to plant native and help mitigate climate change. Please consider parts of bylaw 2219 with thoughts towards not only biodiversity, but to clearly define how a resident may apply for a permit to plant native. Work with our community to devise how this may be accomplished with controls applied that a best practice scenario is initialized and maintained. Let's respect nature. Disrespecting her is what got us in this mess to begin with. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Nettie. Is there another delegate here named Lorraine Johnson? Okay, all right. Thank you. Any questions, comments from members of council to our group of delegates or our 2 groups of delegates? Councillor Mady.
Just a comment more than a question to them. Great job tonight, guys. I know it's a tough thing to come out and speak about these issues, and I wanted to say you guys did wonderful, and I hope that your voices were heard.
Madam Mayor, and again, I want to thank all of you delegates for coming tonight and all the efforts that you are making to support our pollinators and to grow less grass where possible. And I said a couple of weeks ago, I mean, anybody that's watched me and here understand, I'm going to really struggle supporting a bylaw that is forcing people that don't want to plant grass. I'm trying to convince people to plant less grass and grow more gardens and throw wildflower strips here and there. So for the few of you that want to do that, I would not want to see anything restricting you from doing that.
Any further comments, questions from council members to the delegates? Okay, thank you, Nettie. You may sit down for now. I felt like that was like a Dr. Seuss book or something, so this is good. Okay, I need direction. Yeah, the Lorax. I need direction from members of council on the bylaw in the report that is back in front of us tonight. Councillor Mady.
Through you, Madam Mayor. Maybe before that, I'd like to make a motion. Hearing from multiple residents and trying to stay some of this bylaw, I'd like to make a motion that council direct administration to define grass to include species of vegetation that promotes pollination, that benefits other plants, bees, butterflies, birds, bats, beetles, any other insects. I'd like administration to create a policy to include plantings within the town's right of way. Taller than trees or plants taller than 3 feet, be provided a certain distance away from the property line that's feasible and safe to do so on roads and keeping with some parking areas. That the plantings should be taken care of from the residents, and that if the town does go in there to do any work, it will be at the residents' expense to replace those plantings in that area. And that the administration revise the paragraph 6 to include this policy in their plannings of the right of way.
So I believe Councillor Mady is looking for us to define grass and talk about which trees that residents are going to be responsible for. Can you clarify that for us, just Councillor Mady, please?
Sure, not trees. Trees should be left to our town arborist in the right of way. They know the native trees. They know the trees that should be planted on a town right of way and should not be planted on a town right of way. I do not consider trees part of landscaping, and I don't think they need to be in our landscaping bylaw for that. We do have a tree bylaw that I believe is pretty healthy. So this would be shrubs. This would be plants less than 3 feet of height. This would be pollinators, but definitely not trees. Yes, please. Paragraph 6, to allow these plantings. And again, these are going to be plantings. This is soft structure. The hard structure, the big boulders and stuff, I do believe that those could come before council or to our departments for permitted use. So all the soft stuff, all of our planting, I believe though, there should be pathways for people to have those by right.
So I can try to put it all together. So are you looking to send this report and bylaw back and then come back with all of these items? Oh, sorry. So for that, I need a seconder and we can discuss it. Councillor Hammond. And let's go. Who wants to speak first on this? Deputy Mayor Shepley.
Through you, Madam Mayor, I had a question for Director Gerard. Just I hear some discussion on grandfathering in existing. What would your thoughts be on that? If that's something that's feasible to look at, or no?
Through the mayor. So, I mean, grandfathering is very difficult because it's very difficult to establish at which time those things were planted. With that being said, it is possible. However, if council does decide to go with the motion made from Councillor Mady, and the development of a policy that would allow those plantings, which I kind of envision very similarly to what Windsor has for their best practices, is that anybody that would be outside of that best practice or that new policy would unfortunately be in contravention of that bylaw. But with that being said, the current Protection of Highways bylaw, which is bylaw 135 from 2001, that bylaw doesn't permit anything in the right of way currently. So so grandfathering something that was already illegal or not permitted is not necessarily something that I would recommend.
That being said, if we pass the recommendations with what Councillor Mady said, it's more progressive than what we had exist. Okay, further comments to the bylaw or to Councillor Mady's suggestions. So CAO Smith, we're going, like, are we sending this back to our director for one more time and then it's coming?
Yes, it'd go back to administration and Director Gerard and his team would bring a report back with those amendments.
Okay. Anybody else want to speak to the motion? Seeing none, all in favor? And that is carried. Anybody opposed? Okay, welcome. Sorry, Joan, you missed all the action. It was good though. Thank you for coming out. You can stay. You don't have to leave. You get to learn about water bills next. 10.4 Corporate Services 2023-04 Water and Wastewater Billing In-House Transition Update. We will go to Director Jarusevich for this.
Thank you, through the chair. So in March of this year, council resolved to officially end our contracted services agreement with ELK Energy Incorporated and bring the billing functions of water and wastewater services in-house. Within this report, you'll find a timeline as well as 2 proposed recommendations that council is seeking direction on tonight. The first recommendation is a penalty-free period of just over 1 month during the critical transition months of January through to the end of February. The second recommendation would be council's endorsement on the elimination of newly created tenant accounts, which would be included in the future water and wastewater billing policy to be presented to council later this year. Throughout the months of August and September, the new staff have been hired and onboarded. We've acquired the software for the billing. We've met with ELK and received their initial data set. Sorry, just gotta find my spot here. We've met with ELK and obtained their initial data set, and I'm still lost. Give me one quick sec. And we've also completed the construction at Town Hall. Planned for October through to December is a robust media campaign created by our Manager of Communications, Portola. This campaign officially kicks off with an insert that will be found in ELK's bill, being the October bill, so their next upcoming bill. It will progress with a website launch, a social media campaign, print ads, and various media releases. At the end of November, November 30th, Town Administration will host an open house event where residents who may not have access or have additional questions can attend and ask these transitional questions. The most important date to be highlighted within this report would be the first bill that the town is going to issue for water and wastewater billing services. This bill will be circulated towards the end of January. Some operational changes that the town will be implementing include the concept of a paper-free discount on bills whereby residents who choose to switch to e-billing or paperless billing would receive this discount. One of the recommendations included within this report was the concept of a penalty-free period. We know that there will be residents remitting payment to ELK after that first bill is distributed, and to assist them with this transition, we recommend waiving the interest while we settle those accounts with ELK. Given that they likely remitted the payment on time, just to the wrong party. The second recommendation is to phase out new tenant accounts. This comes from administration's past experience as well as this council's experience and consulting with our surrounding neighboring municipalities. This concept means that we would no longer allow new tenants to create an account when they move into a rental unit. What would happen is we would grandfather in all existing tenant accounts. And as they moved out or relocated, we would require the landlord or property owner to become the sole account holder of that property. The reason for this aligns with how we currently treat water arrears. So we follow section 398, subsection 2 of the Municipal Act. And any water or wastewater arrears are currently added to the property owner's tax account. As cited in the report, often property owners are surprised and frustrated when they find that these bills have been added to their property tax roll as they were incurred by their tenant. This is common practice across the county, with the majority of neighboring municipalities only allowing the property owner to have this account. As we progress throughout this process, we'll continue to provide council and the public with continual updates. But again, that main piece of correspondence is going to be the insert, which will be present in ELK's October bill, advising and kicking off our social media and other forms of media campaign. At this point, Mark is present as well, and we'd be happy to answer any questions or comments on the report.
Any questions, Deputy Mayor Shepley?
Madam Mayor, I'm all in favor for the report as it's a good report, well done, and especially the removal of the landlord or the tenant water accounts. I think that ultimately, if they don't pay it, it's going to the landowner anyway. So why not just start there? And I think that's a great addition, and it should, excellent job. Thank you. I'll support that.
Mover, and I have Councillor Hammond, and then we'll go to Councillor Verbeek.
Kate, how will you know when a tenant has moved out?
Through the chair. So when a tenant is moved out, they do have to advise the billing process of that, and we issue a final bill at that point.
I'm thinking of an illegal way around that you could probably have a tenant move in and not become aware of it, especially if the bill doesn't change any naming or anything like that.
Through the chair. So the new process would require the property owner to create that account. We wouldn't allow a tenant to create an account. That would be the phase out approach. That is part of the entire problem, to be honest, because right now a tenant could move out, not advise us, and we just sit on their account. It remains unpaid until it hits our $250 threshold. And once it hits that threshold, we add it to the property tax account anyways.
Accounts continually being paid, you would ultimately would not know. Like I'm being an unscrupulous landowner right now, and I'm saying there, don't do that. Just keep the bill coming. It's coming to your post office box anyways. Just keep paying it and we'll alleviate that.
Through the chair. So as part of the policy, we would actually allow that, right? So we're not going to go out and monitor or proactively seek out these accounts. As they move out, it will be a phased in approach.
Madam Mayor, I was just going to move that we receive all three with much gratitude to Director Jarusevich and team. I did not expect it to be like, this is so thorough, and I think you covered everything. So I guess I will, especially like, I definitely like I endorse the elimination of creating new tenants and holding it on the owner. But so I will second the deputy mayor.
Councilor McGuire Blaze, and then, okay, so we have Councilor McGuire Blaze and Councilor Guerin.
Thank you through the chair. Just to remind me, are we're billing monthly, or is it going to be a quarterly water billing method? What's the frequency of billing?
Through the chair. So our initial report, we kept the levels of service the exact same. It's going to be a monthly bill for residents. We did have conversations of potentially switching it to bi-monthly, but given the fact that could actually reduce our collection rates and reduce the level of service we proposed, for now, for this initial transition period, we're going to stay consistent. It may be something we explore down the road.
Thank you through the chair. And then I think the report's great. I mimic everybody else. I just would like to say, I hope that we do use, and I know I emailed CO Suite about this, that we do use this monthly mailings to inform our residents of things that are happening within the town. So I know that we do this with taxes, but like myself, I don't receive my tax bill till the end of the year because my mortgage bank pays for it on my behalf. And then so all of those memos and that media, I hope that we are stuffing the envelopes and getting the maximum exposure that we can for all of our programs and services that are available on a monthly basis. So I hope we can see that.
Thank you, Councilor McGuire Blaze. Yes, we are looking at doing that, and that just triggered. I also want council and the public know that we're working on not only a mail insert, but also people that pay electronically or through their bank. We're making sure they get the messages as well.
Verbeek.
Thank you, through the mayor. Yeah, I think there's gonna be a lot of what ifs with this. I mean, especially since we have to phase it in. That doesn't stop a current landlord that has a agreement with their tenant to flip it now if he wants. But I guess where my concern is this bylaw going to supersede any lease that a landlord and tenant may have right now? So right now, if I own a building and I have a tenant and the tenant is already paying that bill, he could be my tenant for 5 more years. If he doesn't pay his water bill, it comes on my taxes. I still can't get him off that bill. And I'm wondering if, I don't think that changes anything. And I don't think if I have a lease agreement with him, I'm wondering if this bylaw is going to supersede it. Where I can now go to that tenant and say, sorry, I got to come off, you got to go off it, I got to go on it. And this is a bylaw.
Chair, I don't believe it would supersede it. What we looking at our neighboring municipality who just introduced this, they had to introduce that grandfathering clause for a reason, to honor all of those lease agreements that were existing in the community, right? So we wouldn't be able to retroactively change it. That would require landlords to all revise their lease agreements, which we couldn't put on, nor would we get public support to do that. So that was why the concept was introduced. Again, it would be, and we've given this message to landlords before, their duty as a landlord to be actively collecting and monitoring those arrears. However, we will do what's in our bounds with the privacy agreements that are getting transferred over from ELK. I want to leave it at that because I don't want to get into potential where we have to enter a closed meeting, but we're going to look at that too.
Deputy Mayor Shepley? Okay, Councilor Verbeek, and then Deputy Mayor Shepley, since it's your motion, you'll have the last comment.
Through you, Madam Mayor, I just wanted to point out, because a lot of the public haven't read this, right? And I was really grateful. I know it might seem like a little thing, but you know, giving the savings, the $1.50, whatever savings back to the resident for going over to electronic as opposed to snail mail and paper. Again, you know, that's good for the environment. It's good for the resident too. Thanks.
Comment, and then we'll call the question.
Through you, Madam Mayor, just wanted to clear up one issue that Councillor Hammond brought up, that if a tenant were to keep it going, that certainly wouldn't be in the landlord's best interest. I mean, because the next tenant may not pay the rent. So, I mean, I think it would behoove them to encourage to follow the protocol that's set forth. And I don't think we have to worry about that happening because it's their risk to continue it. So I don't think that's a risk. Just wanted to put that out there for everybody watching. Thank you.
Moved by Deputy Mayor Shepley, supported by Councilor Verbeek, that corporate services report entitled Water and Wastewater Billing In-House Transition Update be received, and that council approve a penalty-free period on unpaid water and wastewater accounts for the period beginning January 20th, 2024, ending February 28th, 2024, to assist residents with the billing transition, and council endorse the elimination of newly created tenant accounts as of January 1st, 2024, and direct administration to incorporate this into the future water and wastewater billing policy. All in favor? That's carried unanimously. Great job. Community Services 2023-30 Special Events Notice, Essex Center BIA Top Parade, needing a mover and a seconder that the Community Services report entitled Special Event Notice, Essex Center Tiny Top Parade on October 27th, prepared by Director Morissette, be received, and that council approved close Talbot Street North from Laird to Victoria from 9:45 to 11:45 for the Essex Center Tiny Top Parade. Moved by Councilor McGuire Blaze, supported by Councilor Verbeek. Any questions? Councilor McGuire Blaze.
Thank you through the chair. I'm not sure which director I can ask, but either Director Gerard, Director Morissette. So the Tiny Top Parade has been approved. Well, hopefully will be approved. And at least our directors have approved it. And we just did a walk over the weekend through our streetscape. I am wondering when can the BIA host like a sidewalk event or something of that nature, so we can start bringing businesses to our downtown, or not businesses, so we can start bringing more people to our downtown area as an event.
Through the mayor, I'll start, and then if there's anything that I'm missing, then I'll look to my here to help me out. But the issue really is that the streetscape is scheduled to be for December 2023. So we have obviously worked out a schedule, and we're doing our best to maintain that schedule. However, there are a lot of variables that we can't necessarily plan for, such as all this rain that we're getting, right? So we're supposed to get a lot of rain over the next week and a half, which could delay the project as well. As a general rule, we have discussed it internally, and we think that something in the middle or towards the end of November would be appropriate. However, that is still kind of pending the streetscape scheduling, ensuring that, you know, we can cover ourselves from a safety and liability perspective as well. The contractor does have care and control over that roadway and the closure, and we have to be mindful that it is their risk that they bear by having pedestrians through that construction zone, because it is active. So we do need buy-in from sure that they're on board with any type of thing like that. So I guess the short answer is middle to the end of November, and you know, pending that everything goes well with the streetscape.
Thank you through the chair. So I'm wondering why we can see that the street, most of the street is done with maybe some landscaping not complete from in front of the Canadian Tire gas bar to Center Street. Could they potentially just do something in the area that the construction is done, the sidewalks are in, the pavers are in, now we're just waiting for streetlights and some trees and shrubs? Could we do like a portion of it? I know I'm asking and I'm being a pest, I know, but our businesses are really, really struggling. And I can't tell you how many times a day in a week I get calls from businesses saying, we're ready to close our doors. We need something. And I don't know what else to do for them other than to say, okay, let's try to host something to bring people from outside in. And the weather is getting worse, and mid to end November, the weather is even worse. We're running out of days and times, and I really truly feel like when spring comes and our streets are again open, we won't have a heck of a lot of business left.
I mean, all we can do is continue to try and complete the project on schedule. As I mentioned, we are looking at like an opening of Talbot in November. So that is middle of November is about a month away. I can't really offer any suggestions in terms of promotion. We have done quite extensive promotion to try and support local businesses. Providing access to pedestrians to access those businesses, promoting parking areas within the town. There are a number of things that we've done to try and help support those, understanding that it's a difficult time during construction. However, crossing our fingers, there's only a month left and we'll be able to open that. It's just that, again, I have to express that there is a significant amount of liability in terms of the town and the contractor with opening that road too soon. There's still a final lift of asphalt to be placed. There's still pavers to be completed. Although, the planters and trees haven't, are being planted, they do pose a tripping hazard until they are planted and then an obstruction is there. There's still bollards to be placed and things like that to control traffic from mounting onto the sidewalk. So there's still substantial amount of work, and our contractor's doing a really great job of trying to complete that as quickly as possible. They were out there today in the rain working. So they're going to continue to work and try and get this done as quickly as possible.
And through the mayor. Okay, so 10.5, 6, and 7 speak about closure of this main street in certain sections for these events. So to Councilor McGuire Blaze's point about pointing on an event and such, how do we see? I mean, the roads are already closed. I understand through those times anyway, so I'm not sure why we have to close them again. But if we're going to be having, say, the Legion parade going down there, is it no spectators allowed, or how's that working for these events?
Through Mayor Bondi.
Sorry.
Through Mayor Bondi. So these are the events that were approved are non-congregating events. So they're events where they're supposed to go through and get out. So working with the, I can't remember Dave's title, manager of Capital Works. He said that those ones should be able to go through. So these approvals are pending that everything is safe and ready to go in that November period. So we do have to continuously monitor, work with the contractors, work with the users that are looking for those events to make sure it's going to be successful. So we are aggressively working with the contractors to make sure that we are in a state where those special events can happen.
Okay, thank you. Sorry, my camera stayed on. I have a question about the tiny tots from 9:45 to 11:45. Well, just for the safety of the children, there'll be no construction in that area during that time?
Through the mayor, the contractor is aware of the event. They will be making provisions to protect the safety of those children. There may be work occurring. However, the area that the actual parade will be happening will be cordoned off to make sure that there's no issues with liability, tripping hazards, or anybody getting hurt. So public safety is paramount to both the town and the contractor. So we'll make those provisions.
Have a motion that we close Talbot Street after.
Mayor, just a quick question on the Tidy Top Parade. I see the layout of it in our package here, but I've been questioned by a few tenants back in the water. A few of the residents have asked about that there's a Tiny Top Parade being advertised over by Home Hardware and Canadian Tire area. Is that a part of this, or is it a totally separate event?
Deputy Mayor, that's Trunk or Treat, and the Optimist Club used to do it in our arena, and now they're doing it at the Essex Home Hardware parking lot.
Okay, thank you. I had a few residents ask me, so I wasn't
Okay.
sure. Thank you.
Okay, needing a mover and a seconder that we approve closing Talbot Street for the Tiny Tots Parade from Laird to Victoria. Counselor McGuire Blaze, Counselor Garen, all in favor. And that is carried. Community Services 2331, special events notice, the Jingle Bell Run, needing a mover and a seconder, that the Community Services report be received and that the Jingle Bell Run will run on November 12th and that council approve closing Talbot Street north-south approximately at 516 Talbot Street north to Eiler Avenue from 9:30 to 11:30 for the Jingle Bell Run. There you go, Joe. Needing a mover and a seconder, Counselor Verbeek, supported by Counselor Hammond. Any questions? Seeing none, all in favor. That's a great event for community living. 10.7 Community Services Special Events Notice, Essex Legion Remembrance Day Ceremony on November 11th, that the Community Services report entitled A Special Event Notice, Essex Legion Remembrance Day Ceremony be received, that council approve closing Talbot Street north-south from Cameron to Bryan Avenue West between 10:15 and 12 for the Legion Remembrance Day Ceremony. Need a mover and a seconder? Counselor Hammond, Deputy Mayor Shepley, any questions? Seeing none, all in favor. Community Services Report Special Events Notice, Harrow Legion Remembrance Day Ceremony on November 11th. Needing a mover and a seconder that the Community Services Report entitled Special Event Notice, Harrow Legion Remembrance Day Ceremony, that council approve closing McAfee Street from 37 McAfee to King and from 21 King Street East to Victoria Street between 11:15 and 3 for the Harrow Legion Remembrance Day Ceremony. Deputy Mayor Shepley, Counselor McGuire Blaze, and we hope the streetscape there will be done. No, just joking. Any questions? All in favor? And that is carried. Community Services 2023-35. Special event notice, Harrow Kinsman Santa Claus Parade, December 16th. That the Community Services report entitled Special Event Notice, Harrow Kinsman Santa Claus Parade be received, and that council approve closing Herdeman Street, King Street between Victoria Street and Sunset Drive, Victoria Street South between King Street and Maple Street between Victoria Street South, and McAfee Street between Maple Street and the Harrow Colchester South Recreational Complex between 5:30 and 8 for the Harrow Kinsman Santa Claus Parade. Got this in nice and early this year. Deputy Mayor Shepley, supported by Counselor Mady. Any questions? Seeing none, all in favor, that's carried. 1010 Development Services, and we'll go for to our Director Chadwick for an update on attainable housing initiative.
Thank you, Mayor Bondi, and good evening, Council. If I may ask our Clerk's Department, Ms. Emery, or Calvin to bring up the presentation.
Green, could you just read it to us as we go? Oh, yeah, because we have it too. Just, well, we can follow along and then the members of the public will join us when they're screen. Okay, while they're getting that set up, we will go to 10:11, Legal and Legislative Services, 2024 regular council meeting dates. I need a mover and a seconder that we receive the report on our council meeting dates. Councillor McGuire Blaze, supported by Councillor Mady. Any questions regarding our council meeting dates? And once approved, our clerks can send them out in our calendar so we can know when to take vacations if we don't want to miss council. All in favor? And that is carried. Any updates from our youth council members? Youth Council Member Pine.
Mayor, so recently at Essex District High School, they hosted homecoming against the Bell River Nobles, which the Raiders won, and it was great to see all the students and particularly community members at large who were former Raiders who came out to show support. We're really happy. Unfortunately, we lost to Herman at the last game, but we are currently 3-1.
Through you, Madam Mayor, Halloween is quickly approaching, and unfortunately, after 13 years, I'm retiring from my trick-or-treating career. However, lots of children will be out that night, so I ask that drivers please be careful of other people, and children and parents, please be safe and watch your children closely.
For that. Deputy Mayor for County Council update.
Through you, Madam Mayor, at the county last session, we were visited by Prosperous. And they were calls for our support and recruitment and retention of positions for the area. That was supported by council. Mayor Bondi also had a motion that was put forward and supported for a tour of the Civic Center ahead of 2024 budget deliberations to help us get a better idea of what we're voting on. Council also supported Mayor Bondi's other motion for requesting a report breaking down the cost sharing agreements between the city and the county and third-party agents like Invest Windsor. And this week we'll be revisiting the garbage bylaw through Mayor Bondi's motion to repeal that. And I'll leave it to Mayor Bondi if she wants to speak on that at all.
We're just putting a motion forward to take the garbage bylaw, the uploading of the garbage that the bylaw currently sits at the county, even though 4 out of 7 local municipalities voted opposed. So we're going to see if it's the will of county council to take that up. Doesn't mean we won't ever upload garbage. It just means that the way the current bylaw stands, majority of the local municipalities have issues with the wording. So we will take that down. Thank you. So I'll get a motion to receive the Essex County Council regular meetings from September 6th. Councillor Hammond and Deputy Mayor Shepley. All in favor? And that is carried. Director Chadwick, we pass it back to you.
Thank you, Mayor Bondi. So we're going to speak to an update on attainable housing initiatives and essentially provide council an update of where we're at, what we're working on, and what we need further direction on. So if council has the presentation, I'm going to be jumping to the 3rd slide, which speaks to the purpose and the background as to why we're here. So in September of 2022, about a year ago, we presented a report to council on potential ways the town could address the affordable housing issue. And again, it would be things that we have control over, that municipal councils have control over, and administration can do. In October, a month later, MMAH presented Bill 23 to amend various statutes to support growth in housing. Subsequently, a month after that, in November of 2022, the More Homes Built Faster Act received royal assent and became law. So amendments that we were working towards and amendments that council at the time directed us to work towards needed to be revisited to accommodate changes to the Planning Act because of the passing of Bill 23. So we're here today to provide you with an update on the various initiatives, to address the affordable housing issue, but also to consider the legislative changes that essentially threw us for a loop about a year ago. So we're on now slide 4, which is council obligations. As a council in the province of Ontario, you must provide for for your residents, for your municipality, provide for an appropriate range and mix of housing options, as well as densities to meet the needs of current and future residents through residential intensification and redevelopment. That is identified in the provincial policy statement, which we are all bound by as planners, as well as municipal councillors throughout the province of Ontario. You are also obligated to set those policies through something called the official plan, and those policies for not only different housing types, but also for residential intensification. And then lastly, the regulation of the use of the land, the construction of your buildings and infrastructures, that's all regulated and identified through a municipal zoning bylaw. So that's the hierarchy of what your obligations are and how you have control over some things to help make housing more affordable in the town. Not only have you had these obligations legislatively, but you've also identified through your own strategic plan certain initiatives that you'd like to prioritize to establish areas within the town where higher density options are encouraged and where the development of mixed use buildings should be encouraged. Moving to the next slide, we are going to talk about the current state of residential development in the town of Essex. Moving to the next slide, you'll see some bullet points on some construction activity that's either currently happening, either building permits have been issued. You see construction of dwellings, but also some of these projects could be in the stages where infrastructure is currently being installed. So some of these projects are in Essex Center, the Essex Town Center subdivision behind McDonald's and Home Hardware, the Woodview Estate subdivision just around the corner from us today, the Maidstone Avenue subdivision along Maidstone Avenue, County Road 8, near the intersection of Talbot, as well as the Victor Street Apartments. Those projects all under construction or are actually, those ones are all under construction at one point or another. In Harrow, we also have Parkland Woods, housing development, Greenleaf Trails, and Sunset Gardens. In McGregor, we all know about the apartment building that's currently under construction on Parnell Street, as well as future extensions of existing subdivisions along Masaccio Drive, as well as along Ducharme Lane. So although Parnell Street Apartments is currently under construction, there are applications that are pending approvals and should be ready to see that shovel in the ground very soon. And then lastly, in Colchester, another application that's very close to receiving approvals is the Colchester Heights plan of subdivision along Lake Erie. The next slide, actually, before I do go to the next slide, so those applications and those projects that are under construction amount to over 500 dwelling units. That's a lot. That's a lot that's happening that are at some level of construction. We're very excited to be a part of building more homes within the town of Essex. So we wanted to give you some perspective on what's already happening. And as you have seen and can witness, those are varying types of density as well as varying types, various types of dwellings. As we move to the next slide, we're going to talk about additional dwelling units. So back in 2021, the town of Essex adopted a zoning bylaw amendment permitting ADUs by right in detached buildings, ancillary to a main dwelling, in agricultural and select residential zoning districts. So back in 2021, administration, very forward-thinking, progressive administration, prepared these zoning bylaw amendments to assist with providing different housing types. Should I keep going? So ironically, it was then mandated by the province to allow for additional dwelling units by right a year later in 2022. So we were on the right track. We were on the, ironically, the same mindset as the province. And the only difference, however, is that we've now been mandated to allow more than just one ADU for a main dwelling. We're now mandated, which I'll get into in just a moment, 2 ADUs for each main dwelling. For your information, so far in 2023, about 20 building permits have been issued for ADUs, both detached from and within main dwelling units. Something else for council to consider, the ADU search partnership. This was something that council about a year ago or 2 years ago, rather, we were very excited to bring this forward, and council was excited to allow us to partner with ADU Search to provide this platform for residents and contractors to utilize to see the possibilities of building ADUs in their own backyards. Pretty soon you'll see that future item, or sorry, that item for budgets decision making on an item that was that came to our attention just recently. So we're going to move to the next slide. If we're sharing the screen, that's great. We're on slide 8. Yes. So we're now going to move into proposed policies and regulations to support attainable housing. And again, items that we're working towards, items that we're completing, and items that we do need your direction on and support. So moving to the next slide, slide 9. The new official plan, so the new Town of Essex official plan, we are currently collaborating with the county as they prepare their new official plan. So our planning staff, as led by Manager of Planning Services, Rita Jabour, as well as our consultant that we retained, we have assessed our existing settlement area to ensure that we have a 25-year supply of lands that are serviced or serviceable to accommodate residential growth. So again, it's that 25-year forecast. It's not for tomorrow, it's not for 5 years from now, it's for 25 years. Residential intensification and affordable housing are key areas of focus, not only in the town's official plan, but our regional body, county official plan as well. Identification of various properties as potential sites to be redesignated for residential purposes. We're going to get into this a little bit more, but these are some of the initiatives. We wanted to let you know about what's happening at the county level as well. It's anticipated that County Council will receive an update on the county OP in November, after which our administration and our consultant will be providing our council with an update of our own official plan project as well. We're hoping to do that in December, again, contingent upon the county's update to County Council. So we are looking at these various properties. We're looking at increasing density in some areas, as well as making sure our policies align with the legislative mandate. So I'm going to have, if I could, Ms. Emery, jump 2 slides. We're going to skip this next one and go to residential intensification. So before we move forward, we wanted to provide you with perspective on what residential intensification means. You'll see in the map to the left, the red, blue, yellow, and green. These are the town's current settlement areas. The red and blue being our town's primary or urban settlement areas, and the yellow and green being our town's secondary or rural settlement areas. Did I say red and blue primary? I think I did. Okay, red and blue primary and yellow and green secondary. Before municipalities look to expanding settlement areas, we must look at our existing land needs, our existing lands, our existing inventory within the settlement areas to determine, are there opportunities to increase the number of residential units per hectare? So what can a municipality do to gently intensify? It can be accomplished through reducing lot sizes. It can be accomplished through reducing floor area of dwellings. It can be accomplished through introducing new housing options within previously developed areas, such as allowing a semi-detached within a predominantly single detached neighborhood. You can also accomplish residential intensification by converting, expanding existing industrial, commercial, or institutional buildings for residential land use. And then also, we can accomplish residential intensification through conversion or expansion of existing residential buildings to create new residential units. And that's what we're currently doing with the ADUs, so allowing for more units in one house. So Ms. Emery, let's move back to the previous slide. Excellent, thank you. So in our new official plan, the various initiatives that are being undertaken are actually taking place as a part of the new OP. So the initiatives that we're talking about right now, gentle intensification. We want to look at neighborhoods that are exclusively zoned for single detached homes. We want to encourage townhomes and semi-detached, duplexes and triplexes where feasible. We want to also look at in our OP, are there areas that we can allow for different housing types and densities by right? Do we, as we know, council has directed us to look at certain areas where we want to establish higher density. So we'd like to look at that and redevelop, or rather develop mixed use buildings or higher density buildings as well. We have identified a few such areas and we look forward to consulting with you on those in the hopefully upcoming winter, obtaining your feedback on some of those properties as a part, again, a part of the new official plan. Underutilized properties, we want to give you a recent example of that. So where we provided, we looked, or municipal council looked at an unused or an underutilized property. The most recent example where there was a redevelopment for housing was the Harrow Junior School property. It was rezoned, demolished, and constructed for more homes. So we'll be looking at some other properties for that, and we look forward to, again, to consulting with the public and council on where some of those opportunities lie. And then lastly, we also need to review our OP policies surrounding reduced lot sizes, shared housing, smaller dwelling sizes, and other means to reducing costs. We are now going to jump to slide 12, and I'd like, if Mayor Bondi, if I may, pass the floor to our Manager of Planning Services, Rita Jabour, who's going to speak to some of the zoning bylaw amendments that we have drafted.
Director Chadwick, and through you, Ms. Mayor. I'm just going to expand in the next few slides on what Director Chadwick has already noted. In this specific slide, we speak about the passing of the More Homes Built Faster Act, or Bill 23, back in November of 2022. And what resulted from this bill was mandatory residential intensification, particularly for those lots which are located in urban settlement areas, meaning they have access to municipal water and municipal sanitary sewer. Provincial legislation now supersedes the Town of Essex official plan and the zoning bylaw regulations in terms of the amount of dwelling units that are permitted per lot. So Bill 23 now permits, as of right, 3 dwelling units per lot. And this is one main dwelling unit. You can have either 2 additional in the main, or you can have 2 in the main and 1 in a separate structure. And the reasons for Bill 23 are many. Particularly, they are meant to create more housing units. And this helps renters, this helps landowners pay down mortgages. It helps all residents of the province of Ontario find a home. Next slide, please. So in this slide, we expand a bit more on the current Town of Essex zoning bylaw, specifically with respects to the minimum permitted size of a dwelling. The Town of Essex zoning bylaw currently has regulations respecting the minimum size for a single detached dwelling, which is 630 square feet, and the minimum size for an apartment or condo unit, which is 430 square feet. With the passing of Bill 23, we are no longer permitted to have minimum dwelling unit sizes in our zoning bylaws. That regulation comes directly from the Ontario Building Code.
And as you can see on the slide, the Ontario Building Code regulations for a multiple dwelling unit in terms of the square footage, as well as a single detached dwelling, is quite less than what the town of Essex currently prescribes. So one of the recommendations in terms of our proposed zoning amendment changes is to remove that minimum dwelling unit size from our zoning bylaw. And in doing so, we hope that this will facilitate the construction of more tiny homes, which are usually less than 400 square feet. And in specific areas, which we're going to expand on in the next slide, especially on those lots that do have the opportunity for more dwelling units and different types of land tenures in terms of ownership. Next slide, please. So in this slide, we also expand a bit more on the proposed zoning changes that will look at the minimum lot sizes in our zoning bylaw. With the reduction in dwelling unit sizes, we need to review the minimum lot sizes as well to ensure that development is feasible. We know that a part of the housing crisis is the price of land. So we are going to review the minimum lot area regulations to ensure that we are facilitating and permitting different types of ownerships, such as land lease communities. And as an example, we have the Cleves Beach community listed as a potential area for that review. At this point, I'm going to hand it over to Director Chadwick. Thank you once again, Mayor Bondi and Council. Let's move to, if we could, slide 15. Thank you. Some other initiatives that we've been undertaking include reviewing various infill properties in established neighborhoods to introduce new housing options. So previous councilors may recall an infill residential project that we had worked on. We have identified several regions and several areas where we have potential to introduce those new housing options, not just for ADUs, but potentially having different density or different lot sizes as well in those areas. So more to come on those. What we had hoped to bring forward as a part of a zoning bylaw amendment may end up being site specific, and we would work with those property owners. We don't ever want to put a blanket over something that is not legislated or is not supported by council and the public. So those may come in time. The infill redevelopment opportunities may come in time, site specifically. We're also working with a local housing provider and quite excited to do so, to rezone lands to accommodate new housing options for residents right here in the town of Essex, in the Essex Urban Center, that being with Essex Nonprofit. So again, that site specifically, something that we are looking to partner with, to work with that housing provider to make it a bit easier for us to provide more housing options for our residents. And lastly, we've drafted a terms of reference for a citizen-based affordable housing task force as directed by council to provide advice on housing policy changes and provide us with creative solutions to addressing housing affordability. So that terms of reference has been drafted and is under internal review. Next slide, please. So ongoing work, administration and our consultants will continue to work towards drafting a new OP that will align with provincial mandates to establish higher density opportunities and to consider gentle intensification opportunities. It's important to note that even when council sees a new OP, hopefully this winter, some of these items will be ongoing as they will require further investigation, especially those that require discussions with landowners if we're going to redesignate or intensify the number of dwelling units per hectare. So like the zoning bylaw, the OP is an evergreen living document that should be and will be amended from time to time. Next slide, please. What we are seeking tonight, however, is not just to provide you information, but also to seek your support in initiating a zoning bylaw amendment for the following: to accommodate changes to the Planning Act because of the passing of Bill 23, the More Homes Built Faster Act, and to explore opportunities for the development of alternative housing types and tenures in specific areas within the town of Essex. What we've listed here are some amendments that we're working towards, but we're not limited to those. So we left the direction to be general enough to initiate the zoning bylaw amendment process to accommodate such changes and to explore other opportunities. We're also seeking your direction to prepare a report to you with a proposed terms of reference for that citizen-based housing task force. Next slide, please. So we thank you for your time this evening, and both Rita and I are here tonight to answer any questions, if any. Thank you.
Comments from members of council? Deputy Mayor Shepley.
Mayor, I'm looking at these numbers. So on page 13, it talks about the multiple dwelling unit size. Is that, we're gonna allow multiple dwelling that's 145 square feet, or would that be like in a whole apartment? Is that what you're referring to?
Mayor? No, that's what's currently prescribed under the Ontario Building Code. But the Ontario Building Code has many rules that I can't speak to in terms of dwelling unit size and per room. So that's just an example.
A comment?
Yes, through the chair. Question I have is on the same block that Deputy Mayor had spoke about. Would the houses that are the mini houses, would they be allotted to be SDUs? Short-term rentals?
Good question, Councillor Allard. Director Chadwick will answer.
Sorry, just to clarify, thank you, Madam Mayor. Councillor Allard, did you ask, will tiny homes be larger or smaller than ADUs, or will they be defined as? Okay, so thank you for that, councillors and Mayor. The definition of dwelling is different than the definition of additional dwelling unit. So we define both separately in our zoning bylaw. So a main dwelling would be or could be the tiny home. And if suitable on the property and meeting our zoning regulations, an ADU could be permitted on. Again, that ADU is ancillary accessory to the main dwelling being that tiny. So long as, of course, the proposed dwellings and dwelling units meet the zoning requirements.
Councillor Allard, did you get all that?
Yeah, I got all that. It wasn't, I'm looking at page 14 of the, it shows multiple houses on small lots. I was wondering about STRUs, short-term rentals. Would these be permitted in this area?
Bless you. Thank you, Councillor Allard. The zoning bylaw for establishing STRUs would not change. An STR unit or a short-term rental unit, if a new one is established or proposed to be established in a residential zoning district, it would require a zoning bylaw amendment. Does that answer your question?
Thank
So
you.
As of right now, no, but doesn't mean they couldn't apply like others, or we couldn't change the bylaw. When I see those little homes, I think of Wildwood, which is a great little place. Councillor Hammond?
See, Mr. Allard's concerned with somebody wanting to erect a bunch of ADUs just to implement a couple more STRs, but my question is, in Harrow, we have houses relatively close to the downtown area that are either rentals or vacant. And I can't see any thing positive in adding additional dwelling units to these properties. But they would be prime properties for apartment buildings. And I think they're in an area that's suitable for them. Is there any way to prohibit or prevent somebody from erecting additional dwelling units in an area that could possibly house more in order to facilitate our housing crisis.
Mayor Bondi, and to Councillor Hammond, we would welcome any input into properties that we may already be looking at and could potentially support your thoughts on. We would welcome that feedback from yourselves as councillors, as well as from members of the public. Our webpage on the official plan has all of our contact information, Essex Planning at essex.ca, or even official plan at essex.ca. We currently are not prohibited, we currently cannot prohibit additional dwelling units on properties, but that's not to say that the property has a higher and better use. If designated for low density residential, is it potentially a property that we could look at for a higher density or a medium density property? Again, we're looking at these properties. Some properties we're very much looking forward to consulting with you and the public on those. It may be ironic in that we may be looking at the same one. So I look forward to hearing from you, Councillor Hammond.
I did talk to Director Drusevich today. I'm wondering, I know that Olivia Chow did this in Toronto and they put an additional tax on vacant homes. I'm wondering if that's something we can look into in the future. Like when we have all these vacant homes all over, I feel like they should be taxed more, and hopefully the residents would want to open them, either sell them or rent them out. Just an idea. And I really support rezoning of Cleves Beach. Any further comments? Councillor Mady.
Madam Mayor, when we're talking about having two ADUs on a property, so 3 potential houses on a property, does that change the amount of coverage we're allowed to have on that lot? Will we have to change that too to allow for more hard coverage in that lot when that happens?
No, we're not proposing to change the maximum permitted lot coverage. A proponent would still need to comply with all the regulations respecting building heights, setbacks, lot coverage, parking standards for those dwelling units.
Agenda, we need a mover and a seconder that Development Services report entitled Update on Attainable Housing be received, and that council direct administration to initiate the zoning bylaw amendment process to accommodate changes to the Planning Act because of the passing of Bill 23, the More Homes Built Faster Act, and to explore opportunities for the development of alternative housing types and tenures in specific areas in the town of Essex, and that council direct administration to prepare a report to council proposing the terms and reference for an affordable housing task force. Councillor Verbeek, supported by Councillor McGuire-Blaze. Any questions? Further questions? Councillor Mady.
Your worship, I wasn't quite done there, but we could ask him here. So in part of the direction that you're looking for from council, it states allow infill semi-detached dwellings in established single detached zoning districts. Now, is that going to be by right, where all of our zoning districts right now we would allow these semi-detached in, or would in some areas they still have to come back for approval?
Mayor Bondi, to Councillor Mady. So last term of council, we identified hundreds of properties, infill properties that are very low density in established neighborhoods that could be intensified well before Bill 23. Bill 23 came forward and said you have to allow 3 units, not subdivided on the lot, but rather either in the basement, in the attic, and perhaps a garden suite. So we are revisiting that mandate, we're revisiting the exploration of that direction or initiative to be site specific. So we're taking that inventory of infill properties. Could there be an infill property that has no road right now in an established neighborhood in Colchester, for example, that might have the ability to have some semis? Potentially. It's going to be site specific. We don't want to do it by right at the moment. We want to take a look at that inventory, and is it then potentially not redesignating, but allowing different densities in established neighborhoods. Site specifically, if that answers your question, we don't want to put things in by right if it's not mandated.
Thank you, and yes, through you, Madam Mayor. So when we eliminate dwelling sizes, we're just going to rely on Ontario Building Code, and we're not going to try to change that at all. Is that the plan with that?
Councillor Meady, we are not allowed to. So the Ontario Building Code supersedes any zoning bylaw amendment regulation regulating minimum dwelling size. So we can no longer do that. The province has said, leave it to the Ontario Building Code.
All in favor? And that is carried. We already took care of 10.11. Go to 10.12, heritage listing for 56 Cameron. I'm not sure if you want to speak to it first. Okay, Mr. Bohr, our manager of planning, will speak to it and then we'll seek direction.
This report recommends that the residential lands and buildings located at 56 Cameron Avenue in Essex Centre be listed on the Municipal Heritage Register. Listing is a tool municipal councils have under the Ontario Heritage Act to provide for interim protection from demolition only for buildings or structures they believe may have cultural heritage value or interest until such time the cultural value is confirmed through rigorous research. Listing is not the same as a heritage designation. A designation is when a property is proven to have cultural heritage value and is protected in perpetuity from demolition and site alteration. The dwelling at 56 Cameron is believed to have cultural heritage value because of its association with Mr. John Rose and its location next to the Essex Railway Station. On page 2 of your report, you will see the approximate location of the lands. They're highlighted in yellow, and you'll see that they're in proximity of the station and in the proximity of 78 Fox Street, which is actually a designated private residence. It served as the former Essex House, which was a boarding house. On page 3 to 4 of your report, you're going to see pictures of the current condition of 56 Cameron as well. So Mr. John Rose and his wife Alice owned the lot until its sale in 1902. Mr. Rose was significant to the community of Essex Centre because he owned one of the finest and most successful livery businesses in the county, in the town of Essex. A livery, for those of you who don't know, was a stable where horses and vehicles were kept for hire and where stabling was provided. They were often attached to hotels or nearby hotels and boarding houses, such as 78 Fox Street. A livery was the equivalent of a modern-day car rental agency. It is possible that the house at 56 Cameron served as Rose's residence. Other reports have also suggested that 56 Cameron was the location of Rose's original livery stable. Mr. Rose also opened up the first pop shop in Essex Centre in January of 1886. On Thursday, September 28th, the Essex Municipal Heritage Committee considered this information and directed administration to prepare a report to council to list the property following the next scheduled committee meeting on October 26th to provide administration with an opportunity to review the potential historic value and provide notice to the property owners so that they may attend the meeting and understand the listing process. However, the property has since sold to a new owner and concerns have been raised about the condition of the dwelling and the potential for redevelopment, hence the report on your agenda tonight. Under the new rules, the new regulations under the Ontario Heritage Act, a property must meet one of 9 criteria set out in Ontario Regulation 906 for determining cultural heritage value or interest if it is to be listed. Given its association with Mr. John Rose, who was a significant member of the community, and the property's location next to the railway station in the Essex House, it has been determined that the dwelling and lands at 56 Cameron meet 4 out of the 9 criteria as listed on page 6 of the report. Should council choose to list the lands on the Heritage Register, a notice will be served on the current owner within 30 days of listing to inform them of the listing, after which time the owner may choose to object to the listing, but must provide the relevant reasons and facts to support the objection. The property will be removed from the Heritage Register if it's not designated by October 16th, 2025. Thank you.
Please.
Thank you, Ms. Jabour, through the chair. You answered a few questions that I had about this, and after hearing the full report, I am against putting this designation on this property for the main reason we're only looking at this property because the new owner of the property is looking to develop it. And so now we're going to be saying to him or her, no, you can't develop it unless you just keep the house as is. So you can't tear the house down and build something new. We're basically tying the new developer's hands and saying the house has to stay there because it's a heritage home. If there was a stable there or something that showed there was a library there, then I would take a little bit more consideration into it. But the resident is not asking for this. The town is trying to say, well, the house needs to come. It sounds like the resident is saying the house needs to come down. It's in poor shape, and I would agree. And now the town is wanting to say, well, we're not going to let you because could potentially, we don't know, it could potentially be historic because some guy who owned a taxi cab in the 1800s company, he might have lived there and he might have ran it out of there. So we're not going to let you do what you want. We're gonna call it a historical home. So I'm against this. I won't be voting yes on this at all.
Councillor Hammond.
Through you, Madam Mayor, I'm going to kind of echo along the same lines. I think if it was a heritage home, it probably should have been listed a long time ago. And when I looked at this particular house, and I remember correctly, in the real estate listing, it said it was a tear down. I mean, I find it unfair that it was allowed to be sold without having this taken care of beforehand, so that the new developer now or purchaser has to now deal with what we decide here tonight. When I don't see this going through. At least not with I wouldn't support it at this time.
Having been on the Heritage Committee, I know that it has come to our attention. The Heritage Committee feels it is their obligation and duty to the residents of Essex to put forth this opportunity to maintain a heritage home. Of course, it's up to council to do that. Because of the recent sale, it was deemed to be done forthwith. There are new time constraints on having this process completed, as Rita pointed out. You only have 1 year, and from when you submit your request. So that's basically what the Heritage Committee was up against, was do it now, and because it takes a lot of research and everything to get these things passed. And 1 year is not very much time in the sense of these heritage buildings and stuff like that. So we're just doing our due diligence and pass along to council to see what kind of scope you have for it.
Councillor Meady.
Through you, Madam Mayor. Yeah, I would echo Councillor Hammond's statements there and add to it that when this was brought forward to the Heritage Committee, one of the members was already working on this file before the sale even took place. So it wasn't like we waited for a developer to buy it, then tried to take action. It was already in the works. It's just that it got rushed a little bit as we heard the sale happen, and we need to know how long things take, and we had to get it before council. That's why it's here tonight. At that time, we didn't know who bought it. We didn't know if it was a developer. I still don't know if it's a developer or not. No, I haven't seen an email. I haven't seen anything. As far as I know, is there a building permit taken on this place yet?
And then
There is, excuse me, thank you, Mayor Bondi. There is no current application for building permit for construction or demolition.
follow up on that? So yeah, so the Heritage Committee wasn't hanging out there waiting and trying to stop a development. What the Heritage Committee was doing was seeing a heritage home that could potentially need to be saved. And that's the reason why this came before us. And I still said that stands. That is potentially a heritage home that should be saved. We don't know until we do the investigation on it. And this is the way to get the investigation done. Thank you.
Madam Mayor, I'm wondering if Ms. Jabor could just run us through the level of, like, what restrictions then will this developer encounter now with this residence?
For you, Ms. Mayor. When a property is listed on the Municipal Heritage Register, no owner of that property can remove or demolish a building or structure on that property without serving notice on council. Once council receives the notice of their intention to demolish a building or structure on the property, they have 60 days to either initiate the designation process, which would deem any building permit or demolition permit null and void, or they may just choose to receive the notice of demolition. And after 60 days, that property would be removed from the register, allowing that owner to demolish or remove a structure or building.
Yep, Counselor McGuire, please.
Thank you through the chair. So if we go ahead and we put this on, which I'm still against, but if council decides that they're going to give it the heritage designation, what does that give? What's the purpose of it? If they can just remove it in 60 days, what's the purpose of doing it?
The purpose is to allow us to do more arduous research to determine whether it warrants a heritage designation.
So you do through the chair, you do your research, you determine that, yes, this gentleman did own it. Then what happens?
Through you, Ms. Mayor. After such time, we'll prepare a report to council to either remove the property from the register if we don't find any significance that would warrant a designation. The criteria for designation are different. You actually need to meet 2 instead of 1. Or we would recommend, if we do find that it meets the criteria, that the property be designated. So it would come back to council.
Through the chair, and then what happens is if the new resident wants to update the windows, what happens?
Ms. Mayor, so if the property is designated and there's any type of alteration to proposed on a designated property, we've delegated that authority to municipal staff. So they'd put in an application for a heritage alteration, and the municipal staff working with the Heritage Committee would determine if the alteration would affect the cultural heritage of the property. So we delegated that authority in order to reduce some red tape for designated property owners.
Through the chair, you're saying that if we do this and we know that this property needs, this is why I'm against it. We do this, we know the property needs extensive work. Even if the new tenant wants to keep this property as is, they want to move into it, they still are going to need new windows, new siding, new eaves troughs. They're going to need new everything. What the designation does is it makes them go through our town council or our town administration for everything. They can't just go get windows and put it in this house. They have to go get a certain kind of window that reflects the heritage of the property, which is why I'm against it, because we do know that there's significant renovations that to be done. So this new owner, let's just say for easy purposes, spent $100,000 on this house. He thought, or she thought, I'm gonna update it. I'm gonna spend another $100,000. We're tripling their bill because you can't just go put in whatever windows you want, whatever eaves troughs you want. You have to make it heritage designate. So it has to look like the time of the era. So I'm still against it.
Please, Counselor Garen.
Yeah, through the mayor. Yeah, you got good points there, Councilor McGuire Blaze. I would have thought a guy like Heritage, I like the Heritage. We lost a lot with our explosion of our Main Street buildings. I love preserving heritage, but I'm just baffled that, I mean, I drive by that place at least once a week and I never even thought twice about that building. I don't see anyone before us tonight opposing this or supporting it. I don't know why it's taken so long to even designate it. I mean, it seems like the Heritage Committee's, it's come to their attention. They're doing their due diligence. So I get all that part of it, but I mean, we're also talking about now a new buyer thinking he can do something with this property that he can't now possibly. Maybe not have the money to put into it. A 3% tax maybe on people who don't live in the houses. I mean, lots of going on right now, but yeah, I can't support it as it is neither. It's too bad about the timeline right now, but I can't support it.
Does planning know the current condition of the house? Like, is somebody living there, and has anybody been told what the developer wants to do?
Through you, someone was just recently living in it prior to it being sold. I'm not sure about the state of the condition, but an elderly couple was living in it, or an elderly person.
I'm not sure about the state of the home. I believe it's habitable. We didn't receive anything to the contrary from our building department.
Developer wants to do with it? Does anybody know? Director Chadwick?
Thank you, Mayor Bondi. We have not received any concept plans for review, no zoning bylaw amendment recommendations, or sorry, proposals or applications whatsoever at this time.
Sir Hammond?
Hopefully, Mr. Mady can concur with me, but the Heritage Committee doesn't want to cornhole this new owner into anything. The intention was to get the land listed and then contact the owner and see what his, at least find out what his intentions are. And we might even remove it ourselves then. But the intention was to get it listed so that we can go through the process. I'd like to make a motion that maybe we hold off until we get a chance to talk to the new owner and then make a decision rather than turn it down tonight. I would like to at least have an opportunity to.
I just may make a comment to that. If any application for demolition does come forward to the building department, they have the authority to make a decision on that demo.
What is the turnaround time on a demolition permit? Is it standard 10 days like everything else? Sir Hammond?
So is that, but that would be postponed if there was a date or listing, right?
Thank you, Mayor Bondi. Yes, if council chose tonight to direct administration to begin the listing process, we would serve notice to the owner, the new owner, and they would have, I believe it's 30 days. It's 60, 90. Read them.
We have 30 days following tonight to serve notice on the owner, and they have to serve council 60-day notice if they have intentions to demolish.
Motion. So I'm going to just speak to the motion. I just believe that I was on the Heritage Committee before, and I have an old, it's not like formalized or anything, but at the time it was a list that we went out and got interested properties, and this property isn't on there. And I'm not saying every property in Essex had to be on there, but this property, there are several on Cameron, like right around there, 46, 65, 103, 23, but this property isn't on there. So that I am having a really hard time supporting it, because I think eventually we need to redevelop some of our older homes. And I know it's unfortunate we're tearing down some heritage homes, but I don't think it's feasible for property owners to fix every heritage home. The one next to the Carnegie Library could have been a heritage home. It was an older home in Essex. And look at what we're getting out of that. We are getting a beautiful build out of that. So, I mean, at this point, I don't really think I want to support the motion. At the same time, I don't see any harm in talking to the owner and saying, hey, can we find out more? So that's just what I have to say. Final questions. Did you have your hand up, Deputy Mayor Shepley?
You, Madam Mayor, just further what my position is where I don't support. When I go by the house, I mean, you could even see in the pictures, they've painted over the brick, the orange brick has been painted over. We don't know what changes they've done to the interior of the house to modernize it, where it's probably not going to be considered a heritage house really at the end of the day. For me, I think if we were going to do this, it's something that should have been done long ago, not just after a sale like this when somebody's, but I know, and I understand the buyer probably was speculating that he would be able to do what he wanted to do with it. However, I don't think we should be handcuffing him at this point. I don't think that there was an urgency on this building before. However, having said that, the United Church I know is not listed and probably should be listed. It is listed? Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Council, we do have a motion or something we can read out on the agenda, or if Councillor Mady, if there's something else. Okay. Comment?
Madam Mayor. Yeah, I would just like to reiterate the point that this is the start of the process of getting those answers, if it was worth saving or not. And when something comes in front of you that might be worth saving, you take the steps on trying to save it. If it's not worth saving, the owner just comes before us and gives us the reasons why it's not worth saving, and it's off. It's not like this is crippling them. In fact, we talked about this quite a bit at the Heritage meeting on the fact that we didn't want to corner the new owner, the potential new owner, because we knew that even though we were looking at it, it had gotten sold, we didn't want to come off on a bad foot. What we wanted to do was speak to the owner, find out their intentions, find out if the property is worth saving, and start the conversation. But by not allowing this, by voting against it, that doesn't happen anymore. We can't serve the owner. We don't know what the intentions are. We know less about the property. We're not doing our homework then. That's my take on it.
Compelling arguments on both sides. I do have a question to administration. Is there any way we can contact the owner without serving the owner? Or do we have to serve the owner in order to talk to the owner?
You only have to serve the owner if you choose to list the property tonight. If we can find their contact information, we have their mailing address. We don't have an email or a phone number. We will use that means to contact them.
Of council, we do have a planning report entitled Heritage Listing for 56 Cameron Avenue, Essex Center, Ward 1 be received, and that the lands municipally known as 56 Cameron Avenue in Essex Center, Ward 1 be listed on the Town of Essex Heritage Register. Councillor Guerin.
Through you, just to Councillor Mady's point, and I want to get administration's feedback on this. If we were to register it, and we were to have the conversation with the new homeowner, who may or may not be a developer, who decides whether it's something that he needs to preserve or not preserve? Would it be our chief official? Would it be him and our side, and we kind of figure it out? Or I'm just wondering, if we went this step, what the next process would be, and who makes the final decision as a, nope, sorry, that's what you bought, you got to restore it, or else.
Mr. Bohr.
So just to confirm, Councillor Guerin, you're asking who would make the decision on any site alteration?
Through the mayor, who would make the decision whether or not, if the builder, the buyer decides he wants to tear down and rebuild on it? Who makes the decision whether he can or not if it's listed on?
And through you, Ms. Mayor, if the property is listed on the register and they want to demolish the property, not referring to site alteration, listing does not prevent changing windows or cleaning the facade, then he or she would have to serve notice on council of their intention to demolish, and council can choose whether to initiate the designation process, which would not allow them to continue with the demolition, or simply receive that notice and that property would be lifted from the register, and then they would be permitted to apply for that demolition permit.
Through you. So us,
Yes.
and only us.
You, Miss Mayor, for a heritage listing, only council.
Here.
Madam Mayor, I would be in favor of opposing this heritage listing, just because as much as I understand that the Heritage Committee doesn't want to corner this buyer, I feel like the buyer is going to be cornered if we do initiate this. Sure, it's not the intention, but every action does have consequences to them. And this person bought this property thinking that they could use it as they would like to, whether that be update it, demolish it, whatever that being. Now they have this asset that they have purchased. And if we go through with this listing and we decide that it's a heritage home, they can't do what they want with it. Then they go to sell it. No one wants to buy something that they're going to have to put a ton of money into to fix up to certain specifications. So it sits on the market and this person has locked up their finances in an asset that they can't utilize the way they intended to. So I personally would be opposed to it.
Yeah, Counselor Smith.
And I believe that the person would have bought the property not aware that it was going to be a heritage home. I understand both sides, but if you declare it as a heritage home, they can't use it what they intended it to. It's just not fair to the buyer.
Okay, needing a mover and a seconder for the motion here that lands known as Cameron be listed on the Heritage Registry. Counselor Mady. Counselor Hammond. All in favor of that. And that is 3 opposed. Counselor Allard, that's Counselor Allard. How did you vote, in favor or opposed? I just want to make sure. Did anybody see his? He said opposed?
Opposed.
Okay. Okay, thank you, Counselor Allard. That motion is failed. Good job as advocates of the Heritage Committee, really. I would still be up to just talking with the owner. Drainage, appointment of engineer for the Long Marsh Drain and Rural Drain Bridge on Smith Road. Need a mover and a second. The drainage report entitled Appointment of an Engineer on the Long Marsh Road on the Rural Drain Bridge on the Smith Road be received, and that council appoint R.C. Spencer Associates under Section 78 of the Drainage Act to provide design and cost sharing the replacement of the Smith Road Bridge. Needing a mover and a seconder. Deputy Mayor Shepley. Support by Councilor McGuire Blaze. Any questions? Seeing none, all in favor? And that is carried. Planning 2023-22 zoning bylaw amendment for parking regulations in the town of Essex. Recommended action that the planning report be received and that bylaw 2279 being a bylaw to amend bylaw 1037, the comprehensive zoning bylaw for the town of Essex, to permit expanded parking regulations for multiple dwellings and add regulations to require a minimum landscaped area within required front yard for lots within residential district. Be read first, second, third time, finally passed on October 16th. Deputy Mayor Shepley, supported by Mayor Bondi. All in favor? All in favor? Oh, any questions? Councilor McGuire Blaze, sorry.
No, it's getting late. Through the chair. So I have said this before and I'm going to say it again. This is really great for our apartment buildings, but this does not solve anything for new subdivision, especially when we're looking at putting tinier lots and lots of tiny homes on properties. So what this is basically saying, just for the public to know and for it to be recorded, that it will now allow driveways to be counted as a parking space. In my opinion, driveways are already counted as a parking space and there's already an issue. We're not adding extra parking to develop subdivision developments. We're just allowing them to call a driveway a parking space. In my household, I don't use the garage, we have the driveway, and that's what most people do. This again works for apartment buildings. It doesn't work for new subdivisions. So I will prove it, but I think we can still do better. And I think we're still going to have an issue. The subdivision behind Canadian Tire, there's so many cars on the streets. The fire trucks have a hard time getting back there. I think we're going to have an issue unless we either fix the parking on the street or figure out where we can put parking lots within subdivisions. And I think that is where we need to go with this, especially we just approved for them to find us smaller lots. There will be less room on the streets with tinier lots for cars, and we need to come up with a solution for that. The driveway is not the solution.
Squire Blaze, my recommendation would be like we pass this tonight and then we can, if you want to make a motion at a subsequent meeting that we further investigate that, we could look into that. I'm not sure if you have anything to add, Director Chadwick. Then I have Councillor Hammond.
You, Councillor McGuire Blaze, great comments. And I think as we've spoken about a few times, creative solutions need to be brought to the table. Those creative solutions can come from administration and brought forward in amendments to our policies or zoning bylaws. However, the creative solutions also need to be brought forward by developers if and how they're willing to accommodate additional parking needs in the form of perhaps lots or rear yard parking, for example. But there are creative solutions out there where we hear you loud and clear, and thank you for that comment.
To add to Councillor McGuire's statements regarding the subdivisions and stuff like that. I'm still all in favor for on-street parking permits in the community. It's one way to control it, and it's works very well in Toronto.
Well, we can continue this conversation on parking. All in favor of what's in front of us right now? And opposed? Okay, that is carried. We already had reports from our youth council members. We already had our county council update. Correspondence to be received. Needing a motion that we receive all the correspondence in 13.1, and then we can come back and talk about individuals. Councillor Guerin, Councillor Verbeek, all in favor? That is carried. And any members of council wish to pull out any members of any items in our correspondence? Seeing none tonight, we have correspondence to be considered for receive and support Ministry of Municipal Affairs. That the correspondence from the Ministry of Municipal Affairs and Housing dated September 15th be received and supported, and that the Town of Essex correspondence, a letter back to them on October 11th be received. Hopefully everybody got a chance to read that letter and thank our administration for that time. Deputy Mayor Shepley, Councillor Verbeek, any questions? Seeing none, all in favor? Arts, Culture, Tourism Committee member. Needing a mover and a seconder that the application by Peter Freely be appointed to the Arts, Culture, Tourism Committee be received and supported. Deputy Mayor Shepley, Councillor McGuire Blaze, any questions? All in favor? And that is carried unanimously. Accessibility Committee members. Needing a mover that Kirk Schroeder and Sandy Whittaker be appointed to the Town of Essex Accessibility Committee. Needing a mover and a seconder. Councillor Mady, Councillor Guerin, any questions? All in favor? That is carried. 13.2.4 flag request, World Polio Day, October 22nd. That the request from the Rotary Club of Harrow for their flag be flown at Town Hall in support of World Polio Day be received and supported. Councillor McGuire Blaze, Councillor Hammond, any questions? Seeing none, all in favor. Everybody's welcome to come to Town Hall at 9:30 on Sunday, right? Committee meeting minutes. Needing a mover and a seconder that we accept the Police Service Board minutes from September 7th. Deputy Mayor Shepley, Councillor McGuire Blaze, any questions, comments? Councillor McGuire Blaze.
Thank you through the chair. So in the Police Service Board minutes, in their section 11, I think it was, they talked about ride programs, and they had 11 ride programs. I think this was for the month of June. I'm wondering if the board knows, like, how long were these ride programs? Because I know they're in there every month. but how long are the ride programs and how many vehicles do they stop in total? Like 11 is a lot for 1 month.
But we can ask when the next ride programs come forward for more details on our ride programs. Good question. Anything else? Okay. Thank you. All in favor? That is carried. Under financial, nothing under new business. We will go to Director Malandruclo.
An addition to the agenda is that the following notice of motion is brought for presentment only and we brought forward to council's consideration at the next regular council meeting. Brought by Councilor McGuire Blaze. That council directed administration to review the paint lines and pedestrian signage at the intersection of Arner Town Line and Talbot Street in Essex Center and complete maintenance as necessary to improve pedestrian safety. The following notice of motion was presented at the October 2nd, 2023 regular council meeting and is being brought forward for council's consideration. Moved by Mayor Bondi that council direct administration to review the current flooding subsidy programs and prepare a report including recommendations for changes in programs and subsidies offered. Mayor Bondi, would you like to speak to? Joe, Councilor Guerin? Any questions? Oh, Mayor Bondi.
Mr. Chair, I would just like us, after the flooding events, just to review our current subsidy programs. Maybe there's something that we can tweak, something that we can add. I've done a little homework on this and found that there's a lot of red tape in going through the subsidies. And for example, you have to get a pre-inspection by town staff where there could be like a fast track program that's done in the city of Windsor where the plumber does the inspection and where, you know, we're doing a lot of work with permits. Maybe we can look at that, doing a lot of work with getting quotes, and the subsidy doesn't change based on the quotes. So we're giving the same amount. So kind of following our procurement policy, maybe we don't need to get quotes. Maybe the only stipulation around that work is that it's done by a licensed plumber. We want people to get the work done and we want them to get it done convenient. And I think that there's a lack of skilled trades out there, generally speaking. So getting a lot of quotes from plumbers is hard on the plumbers. It's also hard on the homeowners. So if other council members have any ideas, maybe we could provide feedback to administration.
Councilor Guerin.
Yep, through you. Yeah, all good points. I think the subsidy program can be looked at for sure. I think the pre-inspection by the town is probably the biggest holdup. I think it takes our time. And people flood and they panic and they want to fix it. And they're like, it could rain again next week. So I think we can eliminate that step or have it put on the onus of a licensed plumber. I think that'd be great. I'd originally thought about adding the sump pump diverter, which would help. That's one that isn't in our policy right now. I don't think where a person can literally flip a switch and start diverting the water out to their lawn versus into the town system. I think anything we can do that's good, that where the residents helping the town, we should be trying to give them some type of subsidy for. I had thought about maybe generators, but I think generators, I just bought one, pressure from my wife, but I just bought one and guess you got to be there to use it. But I mean, we have one now, but I don't think that should probably be in the actual policy. I think that's above and beyond, but surely some other things.
Just going to go real quickly before you, Mayor Bondi, just the last thing to say. I agree with Councilor Guerin too. I think the pre-inspection we could do without, and we definitely want to have an inspection after the fact to make sure that what we're subsidizing goes in. And I think as long as it's a licensed plumber, we should be good to go. Councilor Mady, you have a question beforehand? Go ahead.
You, Mr. Chair. Yeah, great comments and it's definitely needed. And to further on Councilor Guerin's point there that It just flooded and people went out and made repairs right now. As this, I would like to see that those people that went out and made repairs could still be eligible for our subsidies. Because of that, it was a unprecedented storm. They noticed the problem, they went out, they made the repairs, they got this stuff done. And as long as that was all done properly and by proper professionals, I don't see why they should be excluded from our subsidy just because they missed the town pre-inspection on it. Obviously, the work was needed.
Councillor Mady, I just wondered if Director Gerard wanted to maybe jump in on that, and because we would have to, if we were going to look at doing people that had already had it, just recently had it fixed, there would have to be a limit to how far back we would be go to do the subsidy. I would think would be something we'd have to consider.
Through the mayor. Yeah, I think that's a good point. I mean, I think that obviously if we were going to consider grandfathering in people, we would need some kind of time frame, whether it be after the flooding event or something along those lines. But at this time, without doing any further background financial impact, anything like that, I can't tell you exactly that would be a recommendation, but it is certainly something for.
Mayor Bondi, would you like to say last word?
Mayor Shepley, maybe we could look at potentially any repairs made after the August 23rd date, and if people have receipts. Also wondering if anybody is out there, how soon we can drop the 2 quotes, because I'm hearing that constantly. Like if we can, I'm not sure. I will listen to the experts, our clerk, we're still approving the same amount in our subsidy. So I'm wondering if effective immediately tonight, we can drop the 2 quotes. And so that's my one question. I also just want to put a public information out there. I'm wondering if we can look at an incentive to switch over from water-driven sump pumps to battery sump pumps, because what happens is the water-driven sump pumps are literally using gallons and gallons and gallons of tap water and putting them into our systems, whether it's on our roads or right back into our stormwater. Kingsville, the town of Kingsville, their water tower emptied like in 2 hours because many new subdivisions are going out there and they're hooking their homes up to water-driven sump pumps. I also think we should take it a step further and look at our development standards manual and how it references water-driven sump pumps. Drinking water is meant to be drinking water. It's not meant to be used in mass amounts during emergencies. And then it leaves us vulnerable if we have fires at the same time. So, okay, so my question is, when the report comes back, if we could potentially look to August 23rd, retroactive, and if we could effective immediately, what is administration's opinion if we can effective immediately tonight remove the quotes?
Greg?
So I'm not exactly sure the authority on the subsidy program, whether it's a bylaw, policy, a report. So I can't really speak to whether or not we can drop certain things right now. I think the current practice is what would need to remain until we can investigate that a little further. I suspect that, if I could provide a comment, I suspect that the rationale at the time in the development of the subsidy program for providing multiple quotes was to ensure that the town was protected from a procurement perspective. So when you consider how we subsidize a lot of those benefits to property owners, it's 50% up to a maximum of a such and such dollar amount, right? So we need to ensure that the town is also receiving the best possible cost from a procurement perspective, and that somebody's not just going and hiring their brother-in-law who's a licensed plumber and they can charge whatever we want and getting the maximum benefit from the town. So I think that's the rationale behind it. However, that is something, again, that we can review as part of this review if council so decides to direct administration to review these options.
Or Director Gerard, Mayor Bondi, follow up.
For council's information, I did print off the subsidy program. Most of them say up to a maximum, up to a maximum, up to a maximum. So yes, that could happen with plumbers, but I think generally speaking, these costs are probably what the costs are. So I think we have a lot of red tape, and when our town staff go out, I'm not sure what the procurement threshold is anymore, but we've recently raised it to $5,000 where we don't have to get quotes at town hall. So I think that if we really want to help people, we need to make it easier. And I think that that would show that we're receptive to what has happened. I also, just for members of the public, we finished our coffee sessions and all counselors went out in every ward, and we will go through and look for other things that we could do to help mitigate flooding in the community. There's just some little things that we could probably do right away, and this is one of the littler ones. Thank you.
Mayor Bonnie, great discussion. I'm just wondering if I could have Director Melendricolo read the motion as presented before we call the question.
So the motion as presented is that council direct administration to review the current flooding subsidy programs and prepare a report including recommendations for changes in programs and subsidies off.
Thank you, Director. All in favor? Call the question. And that carries. Unanimous.
First, we'll start with Councillor Allard. Do you have anything to report tonight?
No, I don't. Thank you very much.
Thank you for attending. Councillor McGuire Blaze.
Thank you through the chair. So not only is it local government week, it is also small business week. And we have a lot of small businesses in the municipality of Essex. So I would like to encourage everyone in town to visit at least 2 stores in our downtown area that you typically wouldn't stop in. And I think you'll be pleasantly surprised when you go in there and see what our towns have to offer. I also want to remind everybody that the Optimist Club is hosting their Trunk or Treat event this Sunday at the, it's moved from the Essex Arena to the Home Hardware parking lot, and they will have pumpkin decoratings and treats available for all the little kitties.
Thanks, Madam Mayor. Yep, sticking with the Halloween theme. The Optimists are also holding a trunk or treat event at the McGregor Columbian Club, October 29th, 2 to 4. Come on out and check out my costume and get some candy. Also, October 27th, let's all try to make it out to the Family Halloween Spectacular at our Maydell Center. It sounds like a blast. There'll be treats and snacks and painting of pumpkins and a movie at 7 o'clock. Free movie for the family. Coco.
Deputy Mayor Shepley.
Mayor, nothing for the town to report, for me to report on the town. However, I would like to congratulate Noah Shepley and Claire for getting engaged this weekend. My oldest son's engaged, and it was a good weekend. Thank you.
Councillor Mady.
Yeah, it's the Halloween theme. The Spectacular sounds like a wonderful thing. It reminds me of when I used to go to the Y when I was a kid. Like, this is going to be something awesome, and I hope we continue with it. Also, for anybody out there that's going to be out on Halloween night, going to a party or something like that, please don't drink and drive. Watch out for the little ones. Thanks.
Regarding Halloween, I just want to point out to our Harrow residents that our streetlights still aren't working, so be extra careful as our Halloween experts will be hard to see this year. So please be diligent when driving through Harrow on Halloween.
Councillor Guerin.
Thank you through the mayor. Yeah, I just want to remind our residents that are driving down our main street disobeying the closed construction signs that the traffic laws around speed limits and stop signs are still in effect.
Thank you. I have nothing tonight. Bylaws require a third and final reading. Bylaw 2277. That bylaw 2277 being a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of the October 2nd regular council meeting be read a third and final time and finally passed on October 16th. Meaning Councillor McGuire Blaze, Deputy Mayor Shepley, all in favor? That's carried. Bylaw 2280 being a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of the October 16th regular council meeting be read a first and second time and provisionally adopted today. Needing a mover and a seconder, Councillor Guerin, Councillor Mady. Any questions? Seeing none, all in favor? And a motion to adjourn. Deputy Mayor Shepley, Councillor McGuire Blaze, all in favor. Thank you for joining us tonight.